FNRad is presented by Flojoy water, which is purified by granite rocks. Flojoy, a true gift of nature, and Chris Roach. And Essential Toothpaste Tablets, travel-ready, eco-friendly toothpaste your taste buds will enjoy. Wired Snowboards factory in Vancouver builds high-quality custom snowboards for about the same price as other brands' regular boards. I've created several one-of-a-kind wired customs, including a Chase 162 that's seen hundreds of my best powder days. Get yourself a game-changing snowboard and join the Wired team with Devin Walsh, Sasha Daly, and many others. Wired Snowboards. For more information, go to wiredsnowboards.com. Fixed bindings are FNRad. The comfort, performance, and quality of fixed bindings stokes me out every time I snowboard. Their commitment to making bindings that work amazingly and give you no issues puts Fix ahead of other binding brands. It's just that simple. Buy Fix bindings at an authorized dealer or go to fixbindingco.com. Bluebird Coffee Tuning and Rentals in Squamish is the coolest new stop on your way to Whistler. Bluebird offers quality board tunes using state-of-the-art equipment, premium rentals for every level of rider with demos of Burton step-ons, and award-winning coffee and incredible smoothies. For a blend of expert knowledge, convenience, and lots of charm, stop by Bluebird in Squamish and get your board tuned at the newest mandatory stop on your way to Whistler. Pro Standard makes the grill mount the best mount for your Insta360 GoPro or DJI camera. It's a heat-moldable mouth mount, tripod, hand grip, hook mount, bottle mount, wall mount, clamp mount, glove mount, and shoe mount, designed by snowboard legend Ken Ochenbach to get you the perfect angle for snowboarding, surfing, biking, and it'll replace 90% of your other mounts. Use code FNRAD to get 20 off your first order at prostandard.com. Anon snow goggles enhance and protect your vision with unmatched optical clarity. Anon's Magnatech quick lens change technology allows you to swap lenses with ease. All Anon goggles are engineered to deliver no fog days and pair perfectly with Anon helmets and MFI magnetic face masks. Get yourself the best goggles at an authorized Anon dealer near you. Support also comes from our friends at the Boardroom Snowboard Shop. Check out boardroomshop.com and use code FNRAD10 for 10% off regular priced items and FNRAD5 for 5% off sale items. 1910, the collaborative artworks of Jamie Lynn and Scof. FNRAD 20 saves you 20% off at 1910.com. New Greens, the superfood green drink sourced from American farms. Use code FNRAD for 20% off at newgreens.com. I want to thank DeKind Snowboard outerwear, travel bags, and backpacks, Rip Curl's Anti-Series outerwear, and our friends at Mount Seymour, Grouse Mountain, and Cypress Mountain for their support. Roberta Rodger is a snowboarding icon, one of the early Seymour kids before they were the Skids. Roberta's career started before women's specific boots, women's outerwear, and even before women's specific snowboards. She was an important part of many companies including Westbeach, The Boardroom, Soloman, Chorus Snowboards, the first women's only snowboard company, 32 Boots, Foursquare outerwear, and she helped mentor and manage the careers of many prominent pro snowboarders through the 2000s, including her husband, J.P. Walker. Roberta is effing rad, and I was so stoked to sit down with her in the rock chutes at Mount Seymour, the very first mountain Roberta Rodger went snowboarding at.
When I was 15, I moved to Whistler for the summer.
Right. Yeah.
And so that was my first, and just to be able to ride the glacier and have fun. And
it was great. $99 summer pass or whatever it was.
Totally.
And you could just go up every day.
Yeah.
It was like you had to take a school bus and everything. Was it that year?
Yeah. Well, there's always a school bus to get there. You take the first chair and then you take the school bus and then the next chair. But yeah, I rented a place right by Nestor's.
Did you have 10 roommates?
No.
Live under the stairs or something? No. How are you 15 years old and renting a place?
I know, right?
You're so responsible.
Dude, you know what? I've always had a responsibility streak in me.
Yep.
Because, I mean, that was the thing. Like I said, a lot of my friends were older, not just in high school, but just skateboarding and the people you meet. Like when I was like 14, 15, I was going to bars on school nights.
Wait, what?
Well, yeah, because like I had friends that were actually Bonnie. She was 19 or whatever, and she gave me her old driver's license. And for whatever reason, when they took the photo, it was really bright. So it was just basically all you could see was blonde hair.
Amazing.
And I would go and I remember.
Would you get ID'd with it?
Of course. I mean, here's the thing. At 14, 15, okay, at 15 years old, my goal for that year in high school was to break 100 pounds. Like, I was so skinny. And so obviously I looked pretty little.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd get ID'd, but I'd go in and go to concerts, bars. And I asked my mom once, I was like, hey, is it okay that because I had a free range childhood, right? And I was like, is it okay that I'm going out late at night and coming in late? And she's like, well, you go to school the next day.
As long as you go to school, you're good.
There wasn't like as long. It was just like, there you go, you know. And she did also say, like, because a lot of times I'd stay out late, and she's like, well, I'd prefer you come home with people than come home earlier by yourself.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I'm just taking the C bus and
That's
the bus.
practical.
Yeah.
Right. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, what a crazy... like, I'm thinking of when my kids were 15. No way.
Oh, I know.
No, they couldn't.
Yeah.
Things just got tightened up at bars, right?
Yeah.
Like
they wouldn't be able to
there's
now.
no possible way
But
you
then,
could get
no
in
problem.
as a 15-year-old kid.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Going to the Commodore.
Yeah. Yeah, the community was tight-knit here,
Yeah,
right? The
very
skate
tight knit.
community?
The skate community, like, and I'm still close with some of those people, like, and the girls, like, and that was the thing. They weren't all just from the North Shore, like
Right.
Tashi and Sparrow, not from the North Shore. Sarah Jane Kelly, all my skate girlfriends were from all over the Lower Mainland.
Right, because snowboarding's a niche, and then women in snowboarding are a niche of a niche.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, these are my skateboard friends, though.
Yeah,
Because in
yeah.
snowboarding, my first snowboard friend, who actually you should have on the podcast, was Anna Fitzsimons.
Oh, yeah, cool. How do you meet her?
Here. Seymour.
Of course, of
Yeah.
course. I don't even have to ask.
Yeah.
Everybody meets everybody up on the hill at that
Yeah.
at that era.
Yeah.
So you go from getting a board at Christmas to being sponsored pretty quickly, right? Like,
Yeah, it's kind of nuts. And actually, that's another, like, I remember Graham saying, and it wasn't like I wanted to get sponsored. It was just that he said, out of all your girl, like, basically he was like, if anyone could do it in snowboarding, it'd be Sarah Jane. And she went to Handsworth, and a friend of mine from skateboarding and snowboarding, and I was like, he didn't say me. Like, he was just like, if any girl could do it, it's Sarah Jane. I'm like, wait a minute.
Classic brother
Yeah,
move.
I was like, wait a minute. He's not saying me.
Yeah.
You know, and then I entered a contest at Seymour.
Cool.
And it was under the mystery chair. And I think it was the same contest that the Kearns hip got named at.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and I won that.
Oh, sick.
So then I was like, oh, I'm gonna keep doing this. I didn't have like any sort of goal or whatnot, and it just sort of I didn't realize it at the time, and now because like I've done so much work at the Haven, I didn't acknowledge anything I ever did. Like I wasn't like I won, I'm awesome. I was just like, okay, next. And then I think in 1992, this is like a year after I snowboarded, I got invited to the Nationals in Quebec.
Wow.
Yeah.
Who invites you?
The Canadian Snowboard Federation.
That's incredible.
You know?
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And so I go out there. And you know what's so funny? You want to know who I met out there?
I can't even imagine.
Mike Pregnell.
Oh, what?
Yeah.
That's random because he's from out here.
No, he's not.
Oh, wait, he's from out east, like
Yeah.
way out east.
Yeah.
Pragnell,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, and then it just kind of started like and then I had a lot of friends.
How
right?
did you do at Nationals? You do pretty good?
I got 6th.
That's really good.
Yeah, I mean,
top 10 is like incredible.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I think it was half pipe, which obviously I didn't ride half pipe.
There's
We didn't
none.
have anything then.
Yeah.
We'd have half pipes here then. Yeah, and then from there I just riding with like Swaro and Sansalone and Derek and everyone. Like I just started to get. I mean, I got a boardroom. You know,
Was that your first sponsorship, like Sean Brennan boardroom era?
that's hard to say. Quite possibly.
Yeah.
Quite possibly, and then like, because I was getting GNU boards.
Yeah.
And then like Swaro got me on Yang clothing, which was
Sick.
super cool. Like I got to go with him to Tahoe, and
Wow.
and then we went, and I'm like, I don't even know, 16,
Little kid.
and then San Francisco to their headquarters to meet like Gary and Martha, and back then like, yeah, Wendy Powell rode for them.
Wow.
And so it was just super fun. So stuff like that, and then Sansalone got me on 32.
That's
like,
so early.
Through Time Bomb,
Yeah.
and then it just sort of like I think I've been on 32 I started in 1995.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So it just kind of, and I kept doing like, and this is what we did back then, especially for girls, like all the BCSA contests, right? So I was doing all that stuff and doing well. And then I probably was, I don't know what year it was, and I was, 17-ish or something. And it was the first year the first year I was going to compete. I'd been in the Westbeach Classic. The first year I competed, it was like the 15 and under, and so I compete with the guys. And
wow.
Because they didn't have a girls, you know what I mean? And then they had a women's open, which was like pro and am, because they had a men's pro and a women's am. And then eventually they had this women's open, and I was probably 17, maybe 18, and in my mind I thought, if I win this contest, I'm gonna pursue a career.
Sick.
Yeah, I didn't say that to anyone, and I think I was with, well, I definitely was with Devin and Little Dave going to that contest, and then I did win. So then it was like, okay, well, I'm gonna do this.
That's incredible. I really like to dive into the Haven idea that you brought up, because I just got this from, of all places, ChatGPT. I just thought to say, hey, from all these chats that we had, could you give me some of my blind spots? And it was like, yeah, and it spit them out, and I was like, uh-oh. And one of them was that I don't celebrate my achievements.
Yeah.
I don't know what that is, but I'm interested in if you've done work on it.
Yeah, I have done work on it.
Where does it come from, and what is it?
Well, it's going to come from different places for different people.
Of course.
So for me, like I didn't even realize I didn't acknowledge anything I ever did. I had no
Right.
idea, because I was and it kind of comes from two different things. Like I had told myself from my childhood that I didn't matter. And so in that, I was like, okay, in order to matter, I need to do more. And, well, there's always more to do,
Always.
right?
Yeah.
So that was the thing. I would do something. Like, it wasn't like I won the Westbeach Classic and was like, I'm awesome. I was like, okay, next.
Yeah.
Right? Because there's
Yeah.
more to do.
Yeah.
Right? So I never acknowledged anything. And I also had this story that, like, my inner critic was awesome. Because my inner critic, my story got me on this, not only this path of snowboarding and this path of being responsible and being on a safe path, and a healthy path in life, right? So I was like, okay, like these are all, yay, inner critic, my inner critic's my best friend. And really, my inner critic and my desire to matter, because I thought if I did more, I'll matter, right? Kept me from acknowledging anything I did. Like so much so that I never thought of myself as an athlete. I never was like, I'm a pro snowboarder. I just was like,
Yeah.
And even like a few years ago, I was going through some of my stuff and I read this intro that Stacy wrote about me for Snowboard Canada. And I was like, whoa, that's me? Like, I was like, she's writing about me. Surprise. These are all like such nice things. I can't believe this, you know? And so for me, and now here's the thing, like how I've been able to stop that and acknowledge myself is that I matter just as I am. I don't have to do anything. I don't need to do anything. Me, Roberta, matters, you know? And I do also take the time to like pat myself on the back. Good. You know, and acknowledge stuff, even if it's stuff in the past, I'll be like, yeah, I did do that. Yeah. You know, and saying it, like taking ownership of what I did, you know? And
because you did it.
Yeah.
And we celebrated it. Like that was the thing. I remember meeting you and you were already, you know, like a top tier, you know, pro-am competitive woman on, I mean, you were a girl. You were like a kid on Gnu riding like I remember, I think the Skidder came out and you'd been riding a Dukester and now the Skidder was like, you'd been riding a board that was way too long for you.
Yeah.
And and way too long. It was like a 148, but whatever.
Well, it's so funny because that's the thing, like back then too, like there wasn't really much for women. For several years, my snowboard bindings, like the toe straps, didn't work. Not that they didn't work, but my feet were too small. So I basically only had ankle straps for several years.
Okay, this is a wonderful era in snowboarding because your career dovetails with this like realization by the industry, right? So there's a community that's the same as it's always been. It's just a bunch of people snowboarding that celebrate snowboarding.
Yeah.
The industry was always kind of searching out this big get rich quick scheme, and there were years in there where they were like, we've been ignoring 50% of the market.
Yeah.
Like so we can start. I mean, I think there were women specific issues of the magazines that definitely happened. Yeah. There were women specific clothing companies, board companies. I don't know we ever got a boot company.
No.
But I mean, and everybody wanted to like up their game on accessories, everything.
Yeah.
It was like 3 or 4 years, 5 years maybe where
it took, you know what? I'm going to say it took a while to get to that point where companies saw the value in investing in female products because, and I would say that didn't even start till the early aughts.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I would say, not that they weren't starting to develop female product, like they definitely were. And like my first, like a good chunk of my career was like snowboard teams had one girl.
Right.
And that really made it like, unfortunately, competitive amongst women.
Right.
Because like you're the one girl on the team, you don't want to lose that one spot.
Right.
And so you don't want another, I mean, I don't think I was like this. And you don't necessarily want to help another girl because she might take your one spot.
Right, the politics of it. Right.
And it was so interesting for me because, you know, growing up with, you know, Swaro and Kevin and Derek, like, and we were all together and doing stuff and hiking up to the quarter pipe at like Seymour and different things, and we all did it together. And then I was like, oh, I don't have a female version. And then as their careers grew, you know, things did start to change and they had their more guy crews. And I was like, oh, I don't really have that, you know? And then I would see too, like later on, like JP and Jeremy and Mitch and how much they would film each other and really helped each other out. And I was like, oh, we don't have that, you know?
Need this,
and it was hard to get that started.
Absolutely.
You know?
Right. You just described it perfectly. If it's a competitive, like, so you're seeing girls at competitions and then you're checking what gear they're on because there's a limited number of companies.
Some people, that's a story that some people might be doing. Yeah. I mean, and I definitely like looked up to a lot of girls and a couple of females helped me out too, you know? And, well, to be honest, really guys helped me out at first.
Right. You know what? Like, when I met you, you were so embedded in the culture and community that were up here and even in skateboarding, like you've mentioned, that it's not like why would you bail on some of the best riders in the world.
Yeah.
Just on gender, right? Like just on
Totally.
like, oh yeah, well I gotta build my girl crew.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're riding with like, why would you bail? Everybody that's up here when we were coming up, because I participated as like a try hard like enthusiast, right? So when I'm walking by the group of you guys at the back of somebody's truck, I'm like, oh, I wish I could ride with those guys, you know?
Yeah.
And so you're already in the in group of the in group.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's not really a reason to try and search out some new configuration of stuff. But during that time where companies start realizing, they start seeing dollar signs like, oh, we can get more orders if we offer a wider variety of things. It's kind of around when they realize wide boards for guys with big feet, and then they're like narrower boards for women. I mean, the story of, I love to shout her out, Gayleen.
Yeah.
Shout out Gayleen at Sims for Shannon Dunn's board.
Totally.
Where like you've literally got Tom Sims, and you've been in these rooms of like men-centric groups that are going, what the hell would we want that for?
No, totally.
Right? And Gayleen's like, I'll put money out of pocket to do this.
Yeah.
And then everyone with egg on their face going like, oh my God, the Shannon Dunn board outsold everything else.
Yeah.
And so then a year later, other companies are going, what, did you hear that Sims sold like 20,000 units of that Shannon Dunn
That was
board?
like so exciting when that board came out. I worked at Westbeach in North Vancouver.
Sick.
And I remember selling that board. I actually sold it to a girl that became one of my best friends.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, Heather. And it was just so cool, like so inspiring to see that come out, you know. And I rode for Westbeach back then, like the outerwear. So I did sit in those male-centric meetings with Chip Wilson and everyone.
Yeah.
You know, and because that was what was really cool. Like Westbeach was here. You know, like it was their headquarters and just over town, and I got to sit in those meetings.
He was forward thinking too, and like just he like immediately saw the talent of young people.
Totally.
Like you, Devin. I remember Devin talking about Chip saying like that. We want what these guys are doing, not we can't come up with this.
Well, that's the thing. Like I mean, that was so fortunate for me to get on Westbeach because it's like Kevin Young, Trevor Andrews, like you know all these people, and I got to start shooting with Dano Pendergrass.
The best.
You know, like I got such amazing opportunities, and then Chip decided that we were going to do a women's line, which at the time was funny. It was called Girly, and
like
maybe not
West
the best.
Beach Girly or just
Westbeach Girly.
Yeah.
And so I got to design all that, the outerwear for that. And
do you speak out against the girly thing, or does it just kind of flow under the radar because you're so excited?
Yeah, exactly. At that point, I'm so excited. I ride for Westbeach.
Yeah.
And I get to design, and they even actually, I designed a jacket that they named after me.
Nice.
And it was called Birdie because that was one of my nicknames.
Yep.
So it was so fun to do that. And
that's amazing.
And definitely like I had different opinions than Chip because we're sitting in this meeting going over like t-shirt graphics. And he's like, do you know what would be a good is like have girly in the shape of a penis. I was like, maybe not.
Oh my God. What in the hell? But actually, he's from an era of, you know, I've heard some crazy stuff.
I used to think he was so weird, like, because, I mean, now I'm a lot more open-minded. I'm like, I probably would think of it differently. But back then I told myself a story, like, he's a weird dude because I'd go to the offices sometimes and he's barefoot in the office, shirtless.
I don't understand. Like, we're in Vancouver. It's not tropical.
Yeah. This one would be probably in the summer, and still, like, in the office, I was like, okay, it's so weird to walk in and see his, like, concave chest. Like, this is weird. And, you know, I know nothing. I'm just this super timid, naive girl, you know? And,
right, you're sweet.
Yeah.
Like, It's like, put on a shirt, dude. There's a girl here.
Yeah, like
and a young girl.
No, totally young girl.
Like a school girl.
I know.
Here.
And here's the thing. I'll tell you something else he told me once. Because, back then, early 90s, I mean, I wasn't pro at that point, I don't think. And still, like, or maybe I was kind of starting to at some point, and we don't make a lot of money. Like, it's like not much at all. I mean, I was pro and I worked at the shop.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
You know?
Totally.
And we were at, like, it was pretty common back then to go to the trade show in San Diego.
Yep.
And so I was down there one year, probably for Westbeach, and we went to eat or something, and he told me about, I don't know how this conversation came up, and he said, like, about a way for me to make more money. And I was like, oh, yeah, like, I'm interested.
That sounds great.
Yes,
yeah.
And he's like, well, you could be a stripper.
What? I mean, even with everything, I'm like, what in the hell? Who says that?
I know. Chip Wilson says that.
That's incredible.
And I was just like, what? And he said, when I was in college, like, I was a football player. I was, like, fit or whatnot. And he's like, that I, like, someone mentioned to me, I was almost going to do it. Like, and he's like, it's just your body, Roberta.
Whoa.
I was like 18.
Yeah, no, that's creepy. That's creepy.
I mean, I didn't think about it as being creepy at the time. I was just like, I would never do that. I was so insecure anyways. Like,
sure,
that I was just like, oh my gosh, no.
Yeah, 18-year-old me, I was like, I'm wearing 3 shirts.
Yeah, totally.
I'm not just wearing one.
I mean, I was such a tomboy. I skateboarded. Whatever.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, well, that's not what I'm going to do.
There was an energy around it, though, for sure. Like, to have a girl in the crew, like, who's dating her? You know what I mean? Like,
well, and I think that's the thing. Me and one of my girlfriends, we talked about that recently, about how we covered ourselves up a lot, just being like tomboyish, and also we didn't want to be thought of as a pro-ho.
Right.
Like, we were just so like, we don't want to be anyone to think that could be that,
Right.
And so that was definitely
right, which is because of the authenticity of your participation in the thing. Like, to be a pro-ho is just somebody that hangs out at the bar.
Totally. And
right?
I mean,
not up on the hill and not participating and not, like, you were pushing progression. I remember still being that boy, being jealous that, oh my God, Roberta's better than me. That's fucking sucks. I'm never going to be pro if I can't, like, be better than a girl. I remember being frustrated that you were working on switch methods, and I'm like, I can't even ride backwards. Like, I can't ride backwards at all.
Yeah.
If I go backwards, I fall down. Like, and you guys are hitting jumps and stuff, and I'm like, so I can remember that vibe of, like, it was confusing for me. It was confusing. If there was a girl in the crew, isn't somebody gonna, like, hit on her or something? Like,
yeah, I guess my reputation totally served me well, because I got a job. Well, first of all, like, I rode for Rev Snowboards.
Sickest team, sickest assembled team in the early 90s of snowboarding, like, hands down.
Yeah, I mean, I was the one girl on the team.
Amazing.
So lucky. Like, JF, Jeremy Jones, Mitch Nelson, JP.
Heavy
like, it
hitters.
was just, and then some guys in Whistler, like Jamie Parati and Colin. And so they had a photo shoot in Whistler, and I went up for it. And I remember Dano telling me, because I rode for Westbeach, and he was like, oh yeah, there's someone on the team I think you'll like. And it was Andrew Hicks, and we were riding, it was at Blackcomb, and we were shooting some cliff area, and the photographer was taking forever to set up, so we went and did a lap, and we went in the trees, and it was not a powder day. Like, it was like it hadn't snowed for a while. So the trees was just kind of like banks through the trees, and he was really fast. And that's definitely not my snowboarding style. I ride Seymour, where you hit every little side hit, every little thing, like, there's no speed going on, or at least in my style. And Andrew was so fast. So one time I he went around this bank, and I was like, oh, I can't let him get ahead of me. So I cut, and I ended up falling in a hole over a creek.
Oh God.
And this run, it ended when you came out, you're at the base of the chairlift. I can't remember what chairlift we were on, like Excalibur, Jersey, something. And so I fall in, and I'm like, oh, I try to kind of get out. I'm like starfish, and I just fall a little further, and snow falls in on me, and I'm like, okay, this actually isn't that good. And I'm like, he's gonna come back. Doesn't come back, and then I unstrap one of my bindings, and then now like my tail's in the creek, but then I kick my foot into the snow wall. And long story short, Andrew doesn't come back. I start panicking because I'm just like, dude, am I going to be one of those people that get my like body out in the summer?
Right.
Like, you know, I'm like, all right. And then these skiers come, and one guy almost falls in on me, and I'm like, stop, you know, and they're like, we'll go get help. I'm like, someone stay with me. And ski patrol comes. They had to like rope me out, and of course they're lecturing me on being by myself in the trees. As they're doing that, Andrew comes along, rides over their skis.
No way. Come on.
And I was just like, you know, and so I was rattled after that. Like I ran into Dano, and I told him what happened. And I guess later on that day, Andrew walked into Rendezvous, and Dano punched him.
Oh my God.
And Andrew, after that, became one of my best friends.
Yeah, you guys are still
We're still
close.
super close.
Yeah,
So what was really cool is he, like just before summer started, he said, hey, would you like to work at Camp of Champions?
Wow.
And it turns out, I think, this is what I was told. I don't know if this is true, but that Bruce was like, hey, Roberta's like peaches and cream. Like, let's have her come work for us. There won't be any problems. So, of course, I tell myself the story. Peaches and creams means like I'm not hooking up with any of the dudes, which was true.
Yeah, I don't even know what it is.
I'm pretty sure. Like she's like he was like she's in. You know, I was like
innocent.
Yeah,
right,
innocent, right?
Right.
And so then again, there I am again, the only girl coach at Camp of Champions, and had a huge impact on my career, like getting to ride and everyone I met. And,
of course.
And then I got to that summer because Rev paid for us to have paid for us to be able to stay at Jamie and Colin's place in Whistler.
Yep.
And then that summer.
Oh, so you're not staying at the camp like
I didn't that first summer. I didn't stay. No, I stayed at the Rev house.
Sick.
And then JP and Mitch drove up to Snowboard. Except they weren't ever going up. And I was like, why aren't they? What's going on? And it was so cool because I'd come down the mountain, and they would just be like, who was there? What was Al Clark doing? What were they like? This was so early. This is 1995, right?
Yeah.
Like just like what were people doing? And then I came to find out that they couldn't afford to go up. They brought a check they thought they could cash.
Yeah.
And they couldn't when they got here.
No way. So they're just, and what do you do then?
Yeah. And so I'm just up there every day. And then we did, after that, all of us drove to Mount Hood and stayed at the Rev House there. And
I remember because Murray from the boardroom had lots of meetings. Mm-hmm. So we'd have manager meetings all the time. And I remember sitting for lunch with Murray the day that he negotiated a contract with you. Mm-hmm. And I remember him describing it as like that you were like really like I don't want to say wise beyond your years, but it was like he was like it was a tough negotiation kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like because you were the smallest of the team riders, and he's like a physical like hockey jock kind of dude. So he was like, she knows how to negotiate. That stuck with me. I was like, that's kind of cool that. Because I respected who Murray respected, right? Like he used like a dollars and cents, margins, number of board sales. Like he was that guy. And I'm a scattered brain, like whatever. If the shop was mine, it would have been bankrupt in a year. I would have given everything away. I would have been heli boarding as soon as there was enough money to go heli boarding. It would have been out of business. But that left an impression on me. And then, so because I had that idea in my head, and I saw you through that lens, when we would interact over the years, I would always see, oh yeah, okay, she's running, a management company. That makes sense because she's just this shrewd negotiator. She's like this businesswoman. So I put that on you at a very young age. You were a kid. Yeah. So, I mean, those are some of the things that you learn through this hands-on experience with this job, is that you have to negotiate. So I can imagine that's kind of a conflict internally with this inner critic and this thing that it's like, are you really gonna hammer them for what you're worth? Or are you gonna say like, oh gee, thanks. Oh, you put my name on a jacket? That's great.
Yeah. I definitely, it's interesting to think, like, I wouldn't have thought that I was this, tough negotiator back then, because I definitely, there were periods where I just took what I got,
Right.
and I was like, that's cool. Like, I'll just work construction on the side, like I definitely, and I think too, because back then there was so little for female. It was like, if I can get something, like I'm gonna take that, and yeah, I definitely could have been a lot firmer and a little more aggressive.
You don't know as an athlete too, like you don't see the dollars and cents of it. I was with Fred yesterday, and he was the Rozzy rep during the JF Pelchat years.
Yeah.
And he was like, he was describing being there when JF Pelchat found out that, not every board that they made sold that year, Like, he's like, wait, what? Like, as an athlete, you're not thinking, where does this product go and how does it get into the hands of everybody?
Well, and I think for me, because like I cared so much about snowboarding, and I had this awesome community here, and then too in my, like being on 32, like so freaking awesome, like my friends, like Sansalone, and
innovation, like the airbag with the Peter Lime boot and the Intuition liners.
I remember going to Intuition, like to get my molded, and like when Sansalone took me there, and it was so cool. And then too, when they wanted to design a women's boot, I designed the first women's boot, like
so
amazing. and then I got to be a part of that, which was so cool. Like I love creating things, and with Westbeach the clothing, and then now I'm boots, like and the patterns and the materials, and it was so fun.
There are people, designers, that listen to this show. They're going to be like that's a legit. You've got like 3 jobs now, like 3 legitimate jobs, and you're a pro rider, and you're traveling around, you're competing. You're shooting photos. Yeah. That's the thing. You're a very well-rounded snowboarder right from the beginning because of the access to, like you say, like Dano.
Exactly. I think
Catella,
so.
like so many great photographers, Surface. Like these are guys that are landing covers that are, and there's an era of Seymour in the magazines where it's just like every issue, there's so much content from the group that you're a very big part of.
Well, and that was the thing. Like I said, I started out mostly competing because that was what was available to me. And as my guy friends did more like videos and photos, I was like, oh, I could do that too, And so I didn't singularly focus on contests. Right. And I didn't really like contests anyways.
Yeah, you're not that super competitive.
I'm not competitive, and I'm also have this pattern of like, which is so bizarre because I was a snowboarder, pro snowboarder, and I don't want to be seen. Like, don't look at me. That's like a pattern I developed at a young age, which, served me well when I was younger. Like, kept me safe, and I just continued it through that, right? So, but yeah, then getting to film and do that instead.
You had killer taste as well. So like you were a tastemaker in this early era of snowboarding that's celebrating women for the first time, which is super cool. So you were like authentically like a voice pushing through, creating new cool stuff, which is super, super sick.
Yeah. And it's cool because there's other girls that were doing that,
Right.
and before me that were doing that, like Shannon Dunn.
Sure,
You know, like
sure.
just wow, and
Sure.
and
Cersei, oh,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, and it was on a more of a singular level, right? Because they didn't
really
have
was.
right, and I was really fortunate just through traveling and competing, meeting some like more really awesome female snowboarders, and we like started our own women's snowboard company.
Okay, this is it.
Yeah.
Does it go from Rev to Chorus?
Well, no, actually, it went from Rev to Soloman and
Oh,
Bonfire.
that's right. You had Soloman Bonfire in there.
Yeah,
for a
there was
minute.
a little Soloman Bonfire era.
That's kind of a money move. Is that like?
Well, that
or
was
the
kind
boards
of-
were really good.
Their boards were really good, and at that point, I was sort of in a like, what am I gonna do? Like Rev's gone, and that's kind of like hard for me, and maybe I will do more competition. Like I was on the Canadian national team. I was like ranked first in BC, second in Canada. Like, okay, there is possibility here. So that was, okay, I'm going to take that route, the Soloman and Bonfire. And then Leslie Olson approached me about, I think after one of the super parks, about starting a brand. And it was like her, me, Jana Mayan, and Cara Beth Burnside, and oh gosh, I'm going to blame this on my brain injury, but Tomo, I'm not going to say her last name, from Japan.
Yep.
And so they had all ridden for Burton, right?
Totally.
And I was the only non-Burton person, and we started Chorus, and we actually got the owner, financial guy of M3
right.
to fund our
Was
our
that
company.
the soy sauce?
Yes,
company?
Mr. Yoshida.
Yeah, Yoshida. Right. Which, what a rad. So you got to meet him and everything?
I never met him. I think Leslie did, because she was in Oregon,
Yep.
right? And he is in Oregon.
Yeah.
And it was really cool because we were in charge of everything. Like we chose an artist for all the graphics.
Sick.
Mark Welsh was our photographer and team manager. And we sort of set the tone for everything. And then we also, I don't know whose idea this was, we hired a PR firm.
Oh, sick.
Yeah, and they did a whole PR press about this is the first women's
Right.
specific women only snowboard
It was
brand.
huge.
Yeah,
It was huge.
And we
Yeah.
actually, our first year, which typically in a new business it takes like 5 years till you break even.
Totally.
We broke even our first year. and we did all these cool stuff that was like not the like Shred Betty type girl
No.
stuff.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
legit riders, legit graphics, and trips we did. So it was really such an awesome era, and really we wanted to have that, like what Jeremy and JP and everyone had, where they had their crew of all like level, like-minded people, you know. And
This
of
sounds
women.
like a dream come true.
It was a
actually.
dream. It was a dream come
Yeah.
true, and we did like such awesome trips together. And we would film each other, and I would actually I had a camera, and I would edit little videos.
So
And this
fun.
is like way earlier. They'd go online,
Yeah.
and I'd make all this stuff. It was so fun. We would go on all these trips and do that, and it did well. We got a ton of exposure,
So much.
a ton of exposure within the snowboard industry.
Yeah.
We got a ton of exposure, and then outside of it as well. Unfortunately, it was only around for a couple years, and I don't know the full details. And it's my understanding that basically Yoshida pulled out of all, like M3 and Chorus all at once. Which to me, I was like, well, we're breaking even. Like, we're doing good. So,
Yeah.
I don't understand. And I don't know. I tell myself a story. So this is a story. This is not factually based. That, M3 was a huge brand then.
They were
and
doing
all,
great. Yeah.
Mikey LeBlanc, all those guys they had on
Chad,
it. Like,
geez,
the heavy
Blaze.
people.
Yeah.
And the amount of money they were most likely making, their
Right.
travel expenses,
Right.
their
Right.
sponsorship for MDP movies, like all that
Totally.
stuff, I'm imagining was like sucking a lot of financial out of Mr. Yoshida.
Yeah.
So my story is it was because of M3 they got shut down.
Of course.
But of course that makes I feel better saying that.
Yeah.
And who knows? And in the end, I'm still so proud of it and what we did, because that is when companies had already been making female specific stuff, and that's when they actually started to really market female and have more than one girl on the team.
Totally.
Like it became more of the norm. Like, okay, we're gonna have, girl, like 3 or 4 girls on our team.
Right. Less tokenism and more like, actually, this is a legitimate part of our business.
Yeah. So that's like one of the things I'm most proud about for us, is that really, because that really kind of turned heads. Like, whoa, look at how much exposure they're getting. Look at how well the brand is doing and how much people are drawn to it. Okay, we're going to make a segment like that within our company.
Totally.
So that was pretty awesome.
Yeah. I remember that era working at the shop because, I'd go to the trade shows as a buyer, right? Mm-hmm. And so companies would be pushing on us like, we need more out of you. We need more numbers.
Yeah.
And for us, for a couple of years, it was like, then make some good women's stuff, because that's the growth category at our shop.
Yeah.
Everything we're doing pretty good with guy stuff across the board, but there's no like huge growth.
Yeah.
But give us as much women's stuff as you can. Cersei's boots sold as many as, because there's only one women's boot. So she is outselling a Jamie Lynn, a Sean Palmer boot, a Daniel Frank boot. Her boots are outselling that because there's no other stuff in the market like that.
Yeah.
So it was like, I am not smart enough to like figure it out, but the money guys I could see were like really excited about this new category.
Yeah, I think so. And so that was really cool to see. And
stuff that fit. Like, we haven't really talked about it. Like, sure, bindings don't fit your feet, but you can't get you get a pair of extra small men's pants and they're still just giant.
Totally.
Right? And like, it was cool to have baggy stuff, but kind of ridiculous if you're in a jacket you have to cut the sleeves or something, right? Like,
totally.
Yeah, big stuff.
Yeah.
So this is the new era, and you guys, you're on the #1 girl brand.
Yeah, and and because of that, at that same time I got on Sessions.
Sick.
Which of course, and that's one of those times where I could have negotiated more, and I was just like, it's Sessions.
It's
like,
Sessions.
So freaking cool.
What a reputation, and like Jamie Lynn,
exactly,
Mike Rankwit, like these, and Roach was on there, like
like people I looked
brand.
up to when I first, like Chris Roach specifically. I looked up to him big time when I started snowboarding. I had tearing out of magazines all over my walls, Chris Roach. And so I was like, Session. And I could have ridden for Roxy. I did have a opportunity to ride for Roxy. I was like, no, that's not, I was like, it's too girly.
It was so girly. Yeah.
And you know what though? They got some really, like Erin Comstock and Amber, they got some really, really good girls.
Yeah, they went in legit.
They had a sick team.
They were already like pulling numbers in surf. Yeah. Like they were doing it.
And then and Tora, like they had sick girls, and at the time I was like, no, I want Sessions, like Chris Roach, Jamie Lynn. It's so cool. And I took such little money.
Oh man. Right.
And still I got to like do trips with like Hannah Beeman and TJ, so it was like a cool group of like a team.
Of course.
So I love that. I don't regret at all ever. I was so stoked to ride for Sessions.
Sansalone was a big Sessions guy.
Yeah.
I remember telling him that I saw an ad of him in like Guitar Magazine, because Joel was taking out music ads too, right?
Yeah.
Like, so sick. Mm-hmm. What a cool company to be on. Mm-hmm. Cool era. When you talk about the people that you rode with on chorus, like Jana, CB, like these are the best. You guys are like the best in the world.
Yeah.
And so like, is there some swagger there? Are you guys feeling like pretty confident, or is it still the kind of the
I never
same?
felt confident, so there's no swagger from Roberta. I don't know about them.
Right. Yeah. So, is there comfort at least? Are you comfortable in these situations?
Yeah, totally comfortable.
When you show up at a contest, you're not like, you don't have that imposter syndrome thing of like, what am I doing here? You're like, I'm ready to compete. Like, this is
I
good.
was never ready to compete, so it's probably a little different, and more like when we do trips to like Chile or Japan, like I was like, this is where I should be.
Yes.
And I'm here with these people. These are my friends. This is my community. We've got this. It's more of like, we've got this, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. So that's probably your favorite era of riding is you've got the support, and now you've got this dream that you basically just dreamed up in your head. Like, wait, what about like a girl crew? Like the guys are all crewing up. Why don't we do something like this?
Yeah.
And it goes on for quite a few years, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It was like 2 or 3 years.
Yeah. And then out of chorus, what's the next?
Well, and then the next thing is so interesting. So then Andrew Hicks.
Yep.
I don't remember the total details, and he was somehow working or connected with Hammer Snowboards.
Oh, right. I forgot about the rookie Hammer era.
Yeah, which is from France.
Yeah.
And so I got on Hammer. And that was cool, too, because I got, like, at Chorus, we really wanted it, like, community based and a collective. And our boards, like we did each we all rode different size boards. So we had a board that was our board, and it wasn't a pro model board. You know what I mean? It was like I designed the graphics and the color and chose and how it rides for this board. And it wasn't like, this is the Roberta Rodger board at all.
Right.
And that was cool. That's how we wanted it. And then for Hammer, like I did get my own pro model boards that I worked the graphics.
That's so cool.
Yeah, so that was cool, and it was another thing that was cool about Hammer is their photographer was Vianney Tissot. So like one of the
legend.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and I did a few trips with them. Like we went to Japan with Vianney, which was super fun, and we did Team Challenge.
Sweet.
For Trans World. And a couple
that's
other
legit.
things.
Yeah. Hammer was really legit in there for a bit.
Yeah.
Do you get a pay increase that feels good, or you kind of
It's hard to remember, but
yeah, okay.
And I probably did.
Yeah.
And then getting my own pro model was cool. And I went one summer, and Andrew, he met me, but I can't remember what we went out there for. But we went to, they're based in Lyon, in France. And I went there once and we snowboarded, and then I went there another time in the summer for something, and Andrew met me, and I actually went and stayed afterwards and went to Paris.
Wow.
And Andrew came to Paris with me, and then he left, and I went to Italy and just toured around. It was like June.
Cool.
And just kind of cruised around, you know. Went to Verona and Milan and all these different places, and yeah, it was cool. And plus too, because they were French, I used to speak French because I was in French immersion.
Yeah.
More opportunity to speak French, and yeah, it was really fun. It was really fun riding for them. They were cool. Vianney, amazing.
And you're still based out of North Van.
I'm still based out of North Van.
Like you never relocated to Whistler.
No, it for me it didn't really make sense because for one thing I traveled a lot.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, and what was actually cool, like a lot of people stayed at my place. Like when they'd get to Vancouver before they'd go to Whistler, like, you know, so I had a lot of people staying with me, which I loved. And then I mean, I rode Seymour all the time. I mean, I would have a pass at Whistler Blackcomb, and I would go up there, and I'd stay, like, at Dano and Andrew's house all the time.
And it's condition reliant, too, right? Like, sometimes the conditions are just so much better at Whistler.
Yeah,
You got to go there.
Yeah.
It's only an hour up the road. It's not that far.
Yeah, exactly.
But then it's so comfortable to ride here. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah. And I mean, my friends are here, and it's close to, like, you know, it's 20-minute drive from my condo.
Yeah, exactly. You're home and you're having lunch. You're not up in Whistler.
I mean, obviously I spent 10 summers living in Whistler for Camp Champions.
Yeah. So the Camp of Champions thing that keeps going.
Well, yeah, and that was huge for me financially. Like, I needed that money, like I would, there's even many summers that I would be a coach and a digger.
Just to double dip to get that full-time wage as a digger.
Yeah.
And then, I don't even know how they paid the coaches. Sometimes it was just a trade for being able to ride the stuff, wasn't it?
No.
Oh, they paid you?
No, we got
paid. You good. Okay.
And we would get there was a couple years there that if you did an after camp activity with the campers, you get paid for that too.
Killer.
So I was doing all that stuff.
Yeah. That's that shrewd negotiator where you're like actually doing the calculations and getting that cheddar.
I need all that stuff. Yeah. So I did all that stuff. And that was the thing, like working at snowboard camp helped to fund my seasons.
Well, the thing that I've always focused on the snowboarding is like what made snowboard camps is what made Tim Wendell and Craig Kelly create the camps in the first place. Whereas Ken was more about the community. He was trying to get community built, from my opinion. That's the story I'm saying. But Tim and Craig just wanted that competitive edge. So if you rode in the summer and then you come back to the competition in the winter, you've had a whole season ahead of the guys that you were competing against that just took the summer off.
Yeah.
So you've gotten better at your tricks. You've come up with new stuff. And so that was like the driving force behind the very first, because Craig and Tim did their first camp together.
I
Is
didn't
that
know
incredible?
That. I never really thought of that. Yeah. I didn't really, I did go to Mount Hood sometimes.
Yeah.
Actually, when we did chorus, because I also, who I got on chorus was a friend and someone I mentored. She's my best, dearest friend, like family, is Mercedes Nickel.
Of course.
Yeah. So I brought her down to Mount Hood for her first time, which turned into she worked at Mount Hood every year.
Sick.
Yeah. Like she really.
Wendell's or High Cascade or something?
I'm pretty sure she did High Cascade.
Yeah, High Cascade.
I went to High Cascade always. Like when we did chorus, it was, we'd have like a chorus week at High Cascade.
Yeah, sick.
Yeah, so I did that sometimes, and not to the extent I did Camp of Champions, which was the whole time. Right. Start to end.
Right.
6 weeks, whatever it was.
That's amazing. So that was just an off-site benefit for you that you're like, oh yeah, this keeps up my skills for sure. Yeah,
like I got to practice, film some stuff.
See what's going on. Like that's the thing. You know now where the trend is going, and you can practice that, like you say, or learn things that are.
Yeah, I definitely learned stuff there. Like 100%. Yeah,
I remember around this era we're talking about, just out this window, like there was 2 jumps in a row that people would just come up and work out tricks. Yeah. Right? Like Sansalone learned that switch. Maybe he didn't learn it here, but everybody was working on rodeo stuff here at that time. And it was like, that was what you were doing. So competitions like X Games and stuff, like as the competitions step up and the jumps are getting bigger, like, because there's ladies tees all the way through your career, right? Like they would make it like they'd make a ladies jump, right?
Yeah.
But like, are you like, and you've already said, don't look at me. Yeah. And now you've got like international, like television broadcast stuff going on. Was that daunting for your career, or was that just something that, were you looking at it like, oh, I could win 10 grand?
No, never. Like I never looked at I could win this or worried about stuff. Like, even when the Westbeach Classic got bigger, I wasn't, for some reason, like those contests I didn't get as nervous at. Probably because it's my home area, country. Yeah. And I didn't like that stuff got so televised. That made it worse for me.
Did it? Yeah. Yeah. More daunting.
Yeah. More daunting for sure.
So
hence I really near the end of my career I would say probably the last major contest I really did was what became the Sims World Championship.
Yeah.
At Whistler.
Which is Westbeach Classic.
Which is Westbeach Classic, yeah.
Yeah. Which is sick.
Yeah. And so that was like the last like real main contest I did.
What board are you on at that point?
Chorus. I'm on chorus.
Sick.
Yeah. Yeah.
So on Hammer, they're not pushing you to compete?
No.
That's kind of the cherry gig. You get like you get the pro model, and now you're just like shooting photos and not having to show up at these insane events where the jumps in that era start to get
gnarly.
Beyond.
Yeah, they start to get gnarly. So I competed in that, and I ended up winning the quarter pipe.
Sick.
Yeah, so I won the quarter pipe in that event, and that was super awesome. Of course, like because I wasn't ever thinking I'm gonna win that. Like I would see people over the years at contests like stand at the top of the pipe, like and I was just
totally.
And so I was like, and I did win contests over the years. I did, or top 3, and and that one felt good. And then it was interesting though, because like financially, I actually did need that win. It worked out so well.
How so? What do you mean?
Well, okay, so there's a couple things. So first of all, and I thank Natasha Zurich and Michelle Taggart for this. So, because basically that contest was in March, and in July is when I closed on my condo that I bought.
Sick.
And in order for me to qualify for a mortgage, because I was self-employed, I've been on my own since I was 16. I didn't have a parent to like co-sign or anything.
Yeah.
So as a self-employed female of 24 years old, I had to put 35% down.
Wow, that's a lot.
I know. So I was a little short. I didn't quite have enough, and then I won that, which I got $5,000.
Nice.
And then chorus matched it,
nice.
$10,000.
Oh,
so then
damn.
I had enough for my down payment and a new couch. and not the only reason, and a big reason I could afford that 35% down payment was because in 1999, I'd say it was, I got a phone call. We need a double for a commercial filmed in Whistler. And what I heard, I don't know, I haven't had a chance to check this out, and I ought to check this out. The producer, his last name was Obermeyer, like the ski line.
Yeah.
And so he wanted Michelle Taggart to do it. So he calls Michelle Taggart, and she says, I can't, whatever she's got going on. If you're going to be in BC, you should ask Natasha Zurich or Roberta Rodger. So then he calls Natasha. Natasha's on Burton. She's high level. Like, huge. She's amazing.
Yep.
And then Natasha says, I can't. You should ask Roberta.
Nice.
And so they call and ask me. And at the time, I was like, there was a contest at Seymour that weekend that this was going to happen. And thank goodness I said yes, because it was in Whistler. It was heli boarding.
Oh.
And I got paid like $500 a day, and it was like 5 days. I got to stay. This is Johnson & Johnson. It was actually OB tampon commercial.
I love it.
And so, and they had an actress that, had like long brown hair, and I basically wore this whole white outfit and bugs goggles.
Oh my God.
Like the worst.
Bugs. I cannot believe that you were the first person in 10 years to bring up bugs goggles. What a crazy part of the industry. I got to figure out who brought those in. They were insane.
They were insane. And I had to wear those.
Lenses.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
venting,
and they were
all this
and they
stuff.
were yellow.
Oh, wow.
Lenses. But So I got
like Bluebird, like sunny Bluebird
yeah, totally.
and yellow.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, some of the days weren't Bluebird.
Sure,
and I
sure.
stayed at a really nice hotel.
Of course.
Or not hotel, actually, condo with another woman from Johnson & Johnson.
Sick.
And I got $500 a day. At that time, me and my sister were sharing a 1-bedroom. Like, that's how much money I didn't have.
Right.
And I left that, and I went heli boarding, like freaking like 3 days. We did one day at Whistler. It was epic. And I think I left with like payment for those days was like $3,000. And I'm like, I'm rich. I've got so much money.
Right.
This is amazing. And people kept saying, oh, you just wait, you'll get more. And I didn't really understand what that meant. And I did get more, a lot more, because I got residuals every time. And so I'd get these checks in the mail for like, no, 780. Oh, 4,567. And they kept coming and coming and coming.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And I saved it. I did actually buy what I call my very first real car. Because every car I had, my first car was like $1,500. My second car was like $2,500. And that $2,500 car was done. Like, it was like, that's it. This is done. So I used that money to buy a 1993 like used Audi.
Oh wow!
Which was like the car of my dreams, you know, like because JP had an Audi, and then also like at Camp of Champions, like Twos had an Audi, and I would a lot of time be the designated driver, so I was always driving, and I can't remember if it was Twos or Russell Winfield. One of them said like, "Yeah, you're totally cool to drive my car. Like, I'm glad it's you. You're like,
sweet.
you know." And I was like, So of course I was like, I want one of these.
Yeah.
And of course at the time I was like, I could never have one of these. Like, I don't make that kind of money. Like, that's not in my. Then that commercial, bought that car, and then had almost exactly what I needed, the 35,000 or 35%, which was actually more than 35,000.
Yeah, of course, because it's a condo.
Had that, and then I was a little short, and then I won that contest.
Jeez, that's incredible.
It was. I went to I got that check from the contest. Obviously, I'm from here. I went right to the Royal Bank and cashed it. You know,
totally.
Actually, I put that in my savings account. You know, so it's
how amazing. So do you get like a bank manager at that time, or do you get like an accountant? You ever do, or is this stuff that you're capable of doing yourself?
Well, here's the thing. For whatever reason, I think because we didn't have money growing up, and it was that made things challenging. I was definitely like always, I don't have a plan B. I need to save. And like, I opened up my first RSP when I was 19.
Oh, wow. Responsible Roberta. Wow.
And I don't know why I did. Like, someone's must have mentioned it to me at some point, or someone had a conversation about it. I'm like, okay, I'm going to open that. And then I always lived under, which was good. And not always. I always lived under that I don't have money. So I didn't.
Right.
And I didn't spend money needlessly. I saved. I was like, I got to save because something might come up that I need money for.
Right.
And I just lived in it. So I didn't have a financial manager. I had a account manager.
Just at the bank.
Just at the bank, yeah.
You're not paying an accountant. You're just.
No. And things worked out well for me because like when I bought that car, I knew all this money was coming in, so I got a line of credit to buy the car.
Yep.
Right? Because I was like, and I paid that off in like 3 months. You
right,
know?
Right,
and so then I had awesome credit. Mm-hmm. Right? So I kind of learned all those things just by trial and like,
on your own.
Like I didn't know that when I got that line of credit, like how well it was going to help me. Like, so when I applied for a mortgage, like
they're like, oh, good, you've got a line of credit that's in good standing.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, and then too, like I just and I did do this with my mortgage at first. I doubled the payments. My mortgage was actually pretty low, and I always had a roommate, so help pay for things.
Incredible.
Like, you know, and I paid that off like, I don't know, 10 years ago or something, a while back.
Good.
Which of course for me didn't seem like I did something, and also because I had all this,
Right.
I had all these guys around me. Like when I bought my condo, I didn't really think it was that big of a deal because Sam Sloan and Devin are buying like houses and townhouses, and I'm just
Totally.
like, oh, I'm just buying a condo.
Totally.
Like not a big deal.
Right.
You know, because I'm used, and you know, JP had bought a house in Salt Lake, like a whole house, you know, and
Yeah.
and paid that off in like 4 years or whatever.
Right. And you're comparing yourself to the top paid snowboarders in the world at the top paid era of
snowboarding.
So, I mean, yeah, putting that in perspective, I'm a 51-year-old man, worked in snowboarding for a good amount of time. I don't own a house, don't own a condo.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like when you own a condo and you own it outright with no mortgage, you're in a special category of security.
Totally. And
Yeah.
I believe that now. And
Yeah.
I just didn't back
Which is
then.
dope.
I was like,
Right.
whatever.
Let's
like,
celebrate it right now.
Yeah.
Like, yes, that's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
made good decisions.
Totally. I made
which
good
is
decisions.
Awesome.
That's the
Yeah.
thing, you know, like, and people helped me out. Like even when I bought that condo, I actually talked to Mercedes' dad about it before I bought it
Cool.
to get some advice.
Cool.
Like, and because they're family, like
Yeah.
her, like Mercedes, John, Alex, Philip, they're like my family, right? So
Sweet.
I did get help from people when I needed it, you know?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Because you're an authentic, genuine person, right? Like
Yeah.
if you'd been really cutthroat competitive, you would have been completely on your own.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. I think that's really sweet.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to figure out around the hammer time, like when does the start of the agency with Sean and Sean? Well, it's not both of them. It's
No,
actually
it's just
Kearns.
Yeah.
But
So-
they're still kind of living together as roommates at that time and making movies and stuff together, aren't they? Are you in the whiskey movies?
No.
Not at all.
Not at all.
You just
no.
stayed away from them. Those are earlier. Those are way earlier.
Yeah. I don't really know. I'm trying to think. I think Sean, like Kearns might have lived with Johnson back then.
Yeah, there
And
was some-
Casongay.
Yes. Yeah, there was.
Yeah.
You
And
know
I
what?
don't know. I
I
can't
don't
say
know
for
either.
sure.
Right,
and I'll
right,
just
right.
say this. Like, so I had already basically when the winter of 2004 started, I had already decided I was going to retire at the end of the year. Like my contracts ran out. I had been dealing with, well, the year before I'd like had this like weird pain in my ribs and like not, and kind of down my leg and back. And I thought like, oh, what is this? This
Yikes.
hurts. And I tried doing all this different things like physical therapy, Feldenkrais, don't do anything for 6 weeks. And I still was having this like pain. And I told myself at the like winter 2003, like I was kind of riding in pain a lot. And I said, okay, if I don't get this sorted out, I'm going to retire because I'm like holding myself back. That's not that fun, you know? And I would snowboard and then go home and just lay on the floor.
That's stressful.
Yeah.
Did you ever find out what the hell
Well,
it
it was
was?
sciatica.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, when you've mentioned
Yeah.
leg, back.
Totally.
Yeah, sciatica.
And it was from like a super old injury that happened at Mount Hood actually in
wild.
probably 1994.
Yeah. What happened? What was
Well,
it?
I overshot a jump
Yep.
and I actually had to get like taken down in one of those.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and to the hospital there, and I compressed fractured in my lower vertebra. Yeah, so I had, and I didn't even tell anyone this until way later. But that winter, I applied for and got accepted to fashion. Like in 2004, I applied for and got accepted to fashion design school.
Oh, wild.
Because I'd been doing so much designing over the years,
Of
and
course.
I loved it. And that's the thing, when we had chorus, we had soft goods, and I designed all the soft goods.
No way.
So I was
and they
like-
were good. They did really well.
Yeah,
Congrats
I still have
on
some
that.
of those
That's
pieces.
super sweet.
Yeah, and so then that was my plan. And so I basically snowboarded through 2004, did Camp of Champions, everything, and then it was like school started in October. And at the time, Sean had just barely started Infamous that same year. And he said to me, he's like, I'm thinking of starting a women's division. I'm thinking of putting this girl on. Whoever he mentioned, I was like, no, that's actually, you shouldn't put that girl on. I'm like, it might be kind of good for me to have a job while I'm going to school, because now I'm not making money.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how about I develop your women's program? And he was like, yeah, cool. So I did that. I didn't get paid though. so I didn't make money while I was, and I had told him at the time, I was like, you need to get Elena Height. That's who we need to get. So I helped get her on the team, and then I was like, we need Spencer O'Brien. So then we got Spencer, and so
Sick.
I started just doing the women's, and they were amateurs at the time, so it wasn't like Infamous was making money off them at that time at all, you know? And I don't know if it was the second year, like I think at some point, like Spencer started making incentives, maybe the second year. And so then she would have to pay a commission on her incentives, which wasn't much. Maybe let's say it was like $800.
Right.
And at the time, I let her, I can't remember exactly what it is. I was like, only give me 400, or give Infamous 400.
Right.
And then the other half, use it for like a trainer or something to help you in your snowboarding.
Oh, wow.
Because I just, do those things. And I just care, really, is the thing, is I care a lot.
Right.
And yeah. And then mostly I'm doing the women. And another we got, I got Kyle Mack. And so then I was, and Spencer, or not Spencer, Mercedes Nickel.
Yep, sweet.
So then I would travel with them to events. And I remember the first time I brought Spencer to, I don't know what it was, like a Triple Crown or something I had to get her into it. And it was at Tahoe or California somewhere. And I remember being there being like, I'm so glad I'm not in the sky. I was like, this is a rad place to be on the side.
Oh yeah. I when I started the show, I can't remember when I got Spencer on, but I haven't kept up with snowboarding. I don't know what's going on out there. And I looked at a clip of Spencer doing like a back nine or something, and I was like, oh, this is where women are at now? Like they're crushing, and great style, and just like confidence. It was like that thing. Jess Kamira talked about it, that when she would watch women snowboarding and see the hesitation, that like kind of fear hesitation that was in it at the beginning, she was like, I want to have none of that. I want it to look like the guys, where people are like confident.
Yeah, I remember her saying that. I never saw that, and maybe there was. I just wasn't aware of it.
Sure. There was in men's snowboarding in the beginning too. Like it just goes through it. That's just.
And
the way
I definitely think women, especially in the last 10 years, have really stepped it up, and so it was cool to do that with Kearns, and then also I got to. Since I wasn't getting paid, for a few years, a year actually, I did get paid for, I was the, now I'm going to forget the title, but I was the assistant producer on the forum video.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Right, because Kearns is working crazy hard.
Yeah, he produced that whole video. That was all Kearns.
All him. Yeah.
And so in my role, I got paid, which was awesome.
Sick.
And I got to, do a lot of different things. Sometimes it's organizing the trips and the guys, and I got visas for all the guys to come, which of course I don't know how to get visas, and I figured it out, which was actually pretty awesome, because after that, people would pay me to get them work visas to come here.
Oh, that's
so that
killer.
was a way for me.
Right. Yeah, that's definitely Kearns' trajectory in it as well. Is that he's just like figuring stuff out, music rights.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Then that leads to a lucrative deal with Apple. That's like, you're building this thing from the ground up. But then you have this value, right?
Totally.
People are like, shit, I heard you know how to get work visas.
So that was awesome because I got work visas for like Jake Welsh and whoever else was coming up to Whistler to film. And that was super awesome. And then too, like the opening, I don't know if you remember the opening for the video, and Kearns gave me like kind of what the theme was going to be and the look and needed costumes.
Oh, wow.
And so I got to go, to all the like Army surplus places and vintage stores and get kits for everyone to wear, like outfits for everyone to wear, which was super fun.
Yeah.
And worked out awesome. So I made really good money doing that. And then too, like in my position as an agent, which was I was going to school because I wanted to design outerwear.
Yeah.
Which I actually did. I did design the women's line for Foursquare for 2 years. And I designed the women's streetwear line for Nomis.
Oh my God.
So I did get to do some
blowing my mind. Are you serious?
So I did
right
get to
now?
do some designing.
Yeah.
Be an agent. Work on that.
What years is this? This
is like 2005 to 2007.
Yeah.
And I was also the creative director of Snowboard Canada's Women's Annual.
Oh my God. Yeah, you're deep in it. That's incredible.
Because here's the thing. I got to do more.
Right.
I got to do more.
Right.
I don't matter. Right. More.
So the Foursquare stuff, are you working with Peter or are you just on your own?
I didn't work with Peter. I worked with Rob, who was the designer at Foursquare.
Okay.
Yeah, and because we have a house in Encinitas.
Yeah.
So I would go up there and we'd talk about things.
I love this.
It was really, really cool. So I had a lot of things going on, and I really liked the being an agent because to me that was giving back to snowboarding, something that I cared so much about.
Yeah.
And I guess I told myself a story. It's giving these girls something I didn't have.
Right.
Like a mentor and someone looking out for them.
Totally.
Like I thought that was awesome. And then I did so well at it that I kind of started helping some of the guys on the team out. And then Sean and I had very different working styles, and they didn't really mesh.
Okay. I could see that.
Yeah.
I would like to say right here while we're mentioning Sean Kearns, that one thing that I was surprised by and so delighted to learn over the years is that he cares a lot.
He does.
Just like what you were saying about you're a caring person, is that this image of this badass gives no shits about anything is really covering up his nature is caring a lot.
Totally. Yeah.
And I think that that's something that I feel very honored that I get to like put out into the lexicon, because I get a lot of people reaching out about Kearns and like, how do I get in touch with him? His episodes are the ones I listen to on repeat. And I'm like, this guy cares so much. He's such a sweet human being.
Totally.
And his reputation is badass, scary.
Exactly.
Like, stay away from this guy.
And that's not what's underneath him, And that was the thing. Like he did care a lot, and he works really hard, and he's got such great ideas and charisma, and which served him well and served Infamous well and the riders well. Like when he went in to negotiate, people were afraid.
Exactly. It's awesome. All right. Do we need to send in the big guns?
Yeah, totally. So it was super awesome.
Don't make me fly there. I can imagine him like flying places, going into a team manager's office and being like, we're cutting this deal right now.
Yeah. He set the pace. And then I'm and this is one of my kind of coping mechanisms, I guess you'd call it, is because I had such a free-range childhood and a little chaotic, no structure really, that I'm very much about structure.
Cool.
And organization, and I settle. Like being organized, I'm like, it's like a relief. And that's not Sean's style. Not that that's bad. That's not style at all.
It sounds like what you're describing is like a complementary relationship that actually works
It did, and then it didn't, because
Okay.
I just I was like, and that was okay. So then I ended up taking over Infamous.
Which is sick. That's
Yeah.
super sweet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he had so much going on with Infamous Entertainment, and it was kind of at that time it was best for us to separate that, and then I just worked my butt off for a lot of years.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I did love it, and I got to a point eventually where I think bringing in younger riders and then dealing with parents was kind of a bit much for me.
I wouldn't even think about, like, you'd have to deal with parents.
Yeah.
And then you're dealing with parents who, the story I'm telling myself is that some of them are going to be pushing a kid that's now all of a sudden, you're like, this kid's not authentically excited about this stuff.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, the people I had and the kids I had were stoked on snowboarding, and they were totally talented. And, I mean, most likely I was just putting more pressure on myself.
Sure.
Because, young kids, parents. And then I worked so much. And in, I think 2011, I had insomnia. Like, I just didn't sleep for months and months and months. And I was like, okay, this isn't good for me.
No.
And at that time, I decided, because all the athletes that I represented, their contracts all ran out at the end of 2013. Mm-hmm. And so to myself, I said, I'm going to retire from this at the end of 2013.
Wow.
And some of my friends were like, that's a long time from now, because they saw how much it was like weighing on me.
Right.
Like, can't you do this sooner? And I was like, I've made a commitment. Like, I'm very loyal. And I was like, I made a commitment, and I care about all these riders, and I care about snowboarding. I'm going to do this, and that was the plan. And that is mostly what I did. I kept representing JP because, well, we're married, so
You're seeing him
I'm
every
not
day.
going to leave him out there.
Yeah. Let's talk about the JP thing. You guys get married up here.
Yeah.
And what year do you get married up here? It's early, right?
No, not early. Not early at all. We've been together since 1997.
So 97, and this is like a camp thing too, right? Like, was that where it happened? I forget. You've told me the story, and it's so sweet.
Here's what happened, because we were on Rev, and we became really good friends. Mitch too. So we're all really good friends.
Yeah.
Me and JP really good friends, and then early 1997. I don't even remember what it was about. We got in a bit of a fight about something.
Yeah, right.
And then I got invited to, it was the first snowboarder magazine, Super Park.
Sick.
Yeah, and it was at Big White.
Oh, I remember that one.
Yeah. And so I drove out there with Dano, and he was like, yeah, like, and I knew JP was going to be there. I was like, oh no, how's this going to be?
Right.
What's this like? We haven't spoken in a few months. And Dano found out where he was staying. So I went, and I was like waiting at the I knocked on the door, no answer. And then I looked down the hallway, and him and Mitch walk in with bags. They'd just gone grocery shopping. And he looks at me, and I look at him, and I'm like, just kind of standing there. And he comes over, he drops the bag, gives me a big hug.
Sweet.
And right in that moment, I was like, oh my gosh, I love this guy.
Wow.
Because he was such a good friend. And then I was working at Camp Champions that summer, and he was supposed to come up, and then he never did. And I was so upset. And this is so in the era of pre-online stuff. And on my birthday, he actually FedExed it to my friend Shelly's house, because I was so sad. And she's like, okay, like, on my birthday, she gave it to me. It was a ticket to go to Salt Lake City to go camping for my birthday.
Whoa.
Yeah. So I flew to Salt Lake, and at his parents' house, we packed up the car and we went camping. And while we were camping, he asked me to be his girlfriend.
That's so sweet.
Yeah. So then we were and of course I live in North Vancouver. He's in Salt Lake. We're snowboarding, traveling the world, did not always seeing each other a lot. And we would make time. And we never I mean, I did at some point want to get married, and it also wasn't a priority because neither of us wanted kids. So it wasn't like we needed to get married.
Right.
You know? So we didn't get married till 2011.
Okay.
And we got married on August 7th, which was already our anniversary. It was our 14-year anniversary the day we got married.
Oh, wow.
Because I was like, I'm not going to have a new anniversary date.
Right.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
That's super sweet.
Mitch married us.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, is JP religious? Was he Mormon?
Mm-hmm. No, he's not religious, and I'm not religious. And we had a really, really small wedding. Like, it was just immediate family only and best friends. So they're like total, including the wedding party, which the wedding party was me, JP, Mitch, and my best friend, Sarah. There was like 37 people.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's still bigger than what I was thinking. That's a legit wedding.
Yeah.
And it's up here. What a beautiful spot.
Yeah.
Like, so much of your life has been lived inside the snowboard community.
Totally.
And that's just, like, that's very fitting to think of you guys up here.
Yeah.
Getting married.
Yeah.
Ah, that's sweet.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, that's, I mean, so you've watched him through his whole career.
Totally. You know what's something funny is that summer that him and Mitch came to Whistler, and then we went to Mount Hood. It's not like I saw JP do anything super tech or whatever, and I was like, this guy is so good. And I remember coming back and telling, I think Rob Dow and Devin, because I'm pretty sure at that time, if I'm remembering correctly, JP rode for Special Blend and Devin, right? And I was like, wait till you guys meet this guy, JP. He's so good at snowboarding. Like, and they're like, what'd you see him do? I was like, I didn't do it in the pipe, but he's so good at snowboarding. You know, I was like, he's just so good. And I'm pretty sure it was Dow. It might have been someone else, and he was like, well, he's not as good as Devin. Like, 'cause, you know, Devin was so the standard here.
Oh, my God, he was.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
And he was, rightfully so.
Yeah.
Right? And it was just
here at Seymour, like,
yeah.
and just Canada, and he's like in this line of like royalty, like Kevin too, right? Kevin Young, Devin,
exactly.
Like they rode together, and it was kind of like Devin became this new take it to the next level guy. But yeah, you're talking about two of the best snowboarders who've ever lived.
Totally.
Yeah. Coming and telling them, well, you know, this JP guy's really, really good. Yeah, I mean, both those dudes are, you know.
Well, yeah. So it's cool. Like, I saw, like, him from, like, coming and asking me, like, what people were doing at Camp of Champions to, like.
Right. Well, what was he doing? Right, yeah. That's incredible.
Yeah, it's been pretty cool.
So, yeah, I remember you in 2010. So we saw each other at, like, the boardroom party 2010 for the Olympics, and you were very fashion-y. I remember being like, wow, Roberta is like New York fashion. Like, you know how Trevor Andrew changed from Trevor to Trouble to like who he is now is just like a, you know, Gucci ghost fashion icon guy. I remember seeing you and being like, wow, what?
Well,
like, you were a little kid before, and now you're this like, you know, fashion person.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that.
Was that an era? Is that like
well, here's the thing.
A time, or was that like
I would say this. Like, I wouldn't describe myself as a fashion person.
Okay.
And yeah, that was your interpretation.
It's,
and
100%
also, after snowboarding, I got to wear. I loved everything I wore, like t-shirts and hoodies and all that stuff. I had cool stuff. I still even wear. I mean, this is a Cora shirt.
Yeah,
and
dope.
I still even have some, like, because I rode for RDS. I still have some RDS stuff. And then after snowboarding, I could wear whatever I wanted.
Anything.
And then plus because of like my position with the magazine and with Infamous, I got a lot of free stuff from all these different brands. So I got to wear nice stuff. Like, not that I couldn't wear nice stuff before, but
I know what you mean.
But nice stuff was being made for women that was actually snowboard skate style and nice. So I did like to, and I do even still now. I like to every once in a while, like, like, oh, I'm going downtown. I'm going to wear something. Like, I went to dinner last night with a friend. I'm like, oh, I'm wearing something besides jeans and a t-shirt. I'm going to wear something nice. You know, like I do definitely like to, and for sure going to fashion design school, like up to that for me, learning more about the history and the different styles. So, and yeah, probably in 2010 though, I got a lot of stuff from Nixon, and they used to make wicked women's stuff like jackets and all these cool things.
Yeah, I just remember being like, wow, she's super stylish.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And before, you were just like another one of the guys, really.
Yeah.
You know? Like
totally.
just a skater grunge buddy. Is
Totally.
And
Totally.
at that, I was like, well, she's commanding some respect at this event. Terry Kidwell was there with all his boards. It was like...
That was such a fun night.
It was really a cool... Like, I'm not a big Olympics guy. I was kind of like, Terry was right. I still feel that. But it's undeniable the buzz around Vancouver, around the Olympics, was we transformed into this, like, huge kind of nightclub party celebration. That might be it, right?
Yeah,
the fact that I don't
celebration.
celebrate myself, it was really I don't celebrate Vancouver either. Obviously, I don't celebrate anything. I just want to be like, everything's the same, low key. But then when you do participate, like driving downtown when like someone would win a gold medal and everyone's honking their horns, you're high-fiving out the window with people.
Yeah.
It felt like a big, giant community for however many weeks that was, a couple of weeks, 2 weeks.
Yeah, it was actually, because I remember when it was announced that Vancouver was going to get I was actually in Whistler. I don't know if it was because I was at Camp of Champions or what was going on, and I was in Whistler, and I was not into the Olympics. Like, I'm with you with Terrier, and so I was like, whatever about it. And I stood in the village with everyone waiting to hear the announcement.
Oh, there was like a ceremony
there was like
thing.
an announcement where I was standing in the village, and people got so excited. I didn't still.
Right.
I was just like, whatever, this is annoying. And people were so excited. And then before the Olympics started, I actually, like, or the week, whenever they do the torch.
Yes.
Of course, I didn't know about it the day that it was happening because I don't care.
Right. Exactly.
You know, it has nothing to do with me, so why would I care about that?
Right.
And I actually I'd gone downtown that day to renew my passport. So I take the C bus back, and I take the bus, and then there's all this delay because it's the torch it's going on Main Street. And I get out I get to my stop by my condo, across the street from my condo, and I gotta wait there because the torch is coming. And I actually got so swept up in the energy, of the celebration and I was like, I was excited. I was cheering just as much as everyone else. Like, just got swept up in it. I was like, this is, wow.
Yeah, when it came past our house, Sarah McLaughlin had the torch. I'm like, what is, my little daughter, I'm taking her out, like, look, the Olympic torch that I care zero about at all. Like, in fact, I think it's pretty easy to track the decline of riders getting paid. Snowboard sponsorships,
Don't you think so?
all of that. When the Olympics came in, it just destroyed the Canadian Snowboard Federation.
Yeah.
All the, like, you know what I mean?
Interesting.
Like
That's
ISF,
it,
it took the money out of it. It took, and it became this thing that every 4 years there was this big competition, but people were going to it without board sponsors.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's insane.
It's totally, it's so nuts how it's changed. A couple years ago, I ran into JJ Thomas. He lives in Encinitas as well.
He manages Shaun White, doesn't he, in some way? Or he
Something
works
with that.
White or his boards.
And
right.
he'd been like a couple years ago when I saw him, he was a coach for the U.S. team.
Oh, that's right. He was also the coach.
And we had a really good conversation about that. He's like, I can't believe it. A lot of these guys like are pro and they have second jobs. And so he's talking all about this. And I said, okay, well, actually, JJ, can I share something with you? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, and this is, I have no ill will, and I just want to let you know about something. So I had a second job while I was a pro snowboarder. And I was like, remember that? Because that winter, when I got invited to Snowboard Magazine's Super Park at Big White, drove out there with Dano, which most likely meant he probably paid for the gas. And I said, you might not remember this. And one day at lunch, we're in the lineup to get lunch, and you said, oh, I forgot my wallet. And you can get this for me. You can just put it on your travel budget. And there I was, of course, this meek girl. And I said yes, which I didn't have a travel budget.
You're like, sure, yeah, on my budget, no problem.
Yeah, and I was like, I didn't have a travel budget.
You paid for it out of your pocket.
I paid for it out of my pocket.
Like out of your bank account.
Yeah, out of my bank account.
Oh, is there going to be enough for rent?
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, so that's how it was for me. Like, I'd say maybe probably the last 2 or 3 years of my career, I didn't have a second job. I still worked at Camp of Champions to help pay for stuff, and I didn't have a second job for the last probably 3, maybe 4 years of my career.
And you're like a top tier world class pro.
Yeah.
So it's like,
so I was like, I know what it's like to snowboard professionally and have a second job. And he was trippy. And I'm like, for me, it was because it was female. There was less for us. Yeah. And if we did make money, it was significantly less than what a guy would make.
Yeah. Here we're having this conversation post Jess Camara is what I'm going to say is like the divider. Totally. Like she, with the uninvited, she just brought it to the attention of like, look, it's not cool to have a second tier category that gets no support.
Yeah.
Like the no support thing sucks.
Yeah.
Like so bad.
Yeah.
And I've mentioned it before on the show, but it's worth repeating. There was this kind of pervasive idea of just like, well, if you're not the number one guy, then you go down the pecking order and you're below this tier of these guys. Like, so, if there's AM guys who are better than you, then really you're basically AM. But Jess is like, no, like there's lightweight, there's heavyweight, and the top lightweight guys are sometimes the more exciting ones to watch.
Yeah.
It's all support.
Totally.
So had we supported women, had the snowboard industry made a decision in 1975 or whatever, 85, to be like, we're going to support as many women. We're going to have the same number of women on our teams. We're going to have the same prize purses in competitions. Then we wouldn't have seen such a gap.
Yeah.
But like your whole career was in the gap. It was in the gap,
yeah.
Like you guys made your own snowboard company for a while.
Yeah.
Closing the gap a little bit.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. And then people like Jess Camara like really helped make that big shift.
Yes.
And the women that have come since.
Yeah.
Have really helped make that big shift. And it's really awesome to see.
Yeah, I think the thing that was missing and probably is still missing in women's snowboarding seems to an outsider to be that middle time support, right? Like, so there's nobody bringing up the next generation of girls on their team. It's kind of like, well, once you've got in the uninvited and you've got some heat on you, we can start giving you some support. But you need that support for all levels, right?
Yeah, you really do.
Yeah. But you've also mentioned too, like at the top tier, at some point it became, you had to get into it at a point where you're, dependent on your parents for everything. And now you've got coaches.
Well, I didn't.
But at some point now, to be a competitor, now you needed to be in it with support from when you were a child.
And that's the thing. Like when I was talking to JJ about it, and he was telling me like how it is, and that basically you need to have a coach, you need to be on a club, all these things. And I just said to him, I said, well, what I hear when you're saying that is a barrier, a huge barrier for people, because someone from my socioeconomic class, how could they, make it now? You know, like I didn't, like I had to pay my own travel budget to go to Super Park, and how how is someone from my socioeconomic class that's on their own going to be able to hire a coach?
They can't.
Be on a snowboard club? Like, to me, that's like we've become freaking tennis.
Yes.
Or, you know, like, like
at that level, I think it's safe to say that's what it is, right? I'm not watching the Olympic half-pipe finals thinking, you know, what's the story behind this person coming up? It's like, well, they had a coach.
Yeah.
They had the Red Bull rehab team reconstruct their knee when they were 11. You know what I mean? Like, it's like they've got a level of support to get there that is only available to really to the very rich. And I'm sure there's people that listen to the show are going, look, no, it's not, you know, if your talent is enough and you get scoped, you get these opportunities, you know?
Yeah. And I hope that it is like
I hope
that.
that
So
it
I
is
really
too.
hope it is, because I think for me, I didn't have the financial or parental support, except what I did have is I grew up in North Vancouver.
Yes.
You know, and I had great friends that had great families. I saw what was possible.
Yep.
And I got to skate and snowboard with all these rad guys that, you know, Sansalem got me on 32.
Right.
Swirl got me on Yang, like all
Right.
these things. Like, and then I got on Westbeach and all these things. And, you know, that got me into to sponsors or situations that helped me financially and in my career.
Sure.
You know?
Sure.
Like,
well, that
and I believe it's because I grew up in North Vancouver.
Yeah, that sounds an awful lot like not celebrating Roberta, but
Well, yeah.
you stood out.
Yeah.
That's the thing. I didn't know what your economic or household background was. I knew that you were up here.
Yeah.
I knew that you were trying new things and that you were pushing yourself in a way that, you know, as a group, sometimes at these lower tiers where I would snowboard, we'd see a girl that was good and be like, you should do this. I sat on the chairlift with Natasha Zurich at Grouse going, you've got a natural talent for this, girl. You need to be on a team like Burton. Like, this is before option and never and all that. Just she was just riding for herself and having fun. You didn't need someone like me, and neither did Natasha, to do this. You were already addicted like we were addicted.
Totally.
You were already all in for this. You're like, if I can do this, I'm gonna do this.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, that's like one of my strengths is determination.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And adaptability. And I definitely, I was like, I'm determined. You know, I'm going to learn this trick. I'm going to, like, Swirl's doing that. I'm doing it.
Yes.
You know? Like, okay.
And so there is a reality that I see from a more neutral standpoint of like, Kevin Sansalone can brag and say, I got Roberta on 32.
Yeah.
Like, I got Roberta. You know what I mean? Like, and that's a real thing. Like, there are so many instances of you really stepping up to the plate and knocking it out of the park in your career.
Yeah.
That the first time we talked about it, I was elated for like a week after. I'm like, this is exactly what this show is about. Is about celebrating people that got into snowboarding for the right reason and conducted themselves throughout their career in the right way, you know? And like, you've been at these epic events and you've been involved in these amazing things that movie is just, come on, it's the pinnacle of when movies still sold tens of thousands of copies, you know? And when the Forum team was like so special to just the lexicon. So I mean, one of the greatest to do it. Really, let's celebrate Roberta. That's the whole reason we're having this conversation. Is a celebration of you. Yeah, thank you. Thanks for being that. Honestly, thanks for being that. Like when I moved out west, '93. You're already on the boardroom team. You're riding with Devin and Dow and people that I'm looking up to from Ontario, right? And I'm like, this is rad. This place is sick. And Seymour, still now. Still now. I ride all 3 local mountains, and they all have their strengths, all of them. But Seymour is so special
It
in our
is.
community.
It is so special.
All of a
I'm so
sudden-
grateful. Like, they helped us out so much back then. Like, hooking us up and really letting us do what we wanted to do. And like I said earlier, before we were recording, Eddie hooked me up to get married up here.
That's
like, I didn't
rad.
have to pay. Like, we got married behind the Enquist Lodge, and we used that lodge. Like, he totally hooked me up. Like, that's family. You
That's
know what I mean?
rad.
Like, to me, Seymour's home. You know, it really, really is.
That's so rad.
Yeah.
Should we do a few minutes on the challenges of, I mean, we could stop now and have a perfect episode right here.
Yeah.
And but we haven't even mentioned the life-altering accident.
Yeah, we can talk about
It's
that.
up to
totally.
you.
No,
It's really up to you.
I'd like to talk about that.
Right.
Yeah.
I think when I first heard the news, everybody came out of the woodwork like, have you heard what happened? Have you heard what happened? And it was devastating.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously for you, it was like a little bit more than it was for us.
Yeah.
But the community was rocked by the news.
And they stood up for me big time. Like, they really did. Because I mean, and I still don't remember the collision, you know? And because I was riding my bicycle. This was like literally basically in front of our house.
We've walked by the spot.
Yeah, we walked by the spot.
It gave me chills. I was
Yeah.
like, you live this close to where that happened?
Yeah.
That's got to be a daily reminder of just the worst moment of your whole life.
Yeah, and it took me a bit to like work through that, and
Yeah.
but yeah, like the impact of, you know, I took the grill, you know, it's so funny because Tonino said, when I saw him like a year later, and he's like, dude, who else can like get hit by a truck and walk away? I
No
didn't
one.
walk away
No
at
one.
all, but I took the grill of a truck to my back.
Oh,
And then flew, and you know, and I had lights, I had a helmet, I had all this stuff on, and then I was in a coma for a month, and during that time I had 2 skull surgeries, 2 back surgeries, and when I was awake before I actually was awake, you know. So, you know, 6 weeks later, I'm waking up, like actually awake, and JP, he didn't tell me. All I knew was I'm in a hospital bed. I can't really move. What's going on?
Oof.
And JP told me right away about my skull, because at that point they'd taken off half my skull, and so my head, half my head looked like a quarter pipe.
yep.
Because it actually
Yeah, I've seen pictures of it, and I also had a friend that had the same surgery
Yeah.
when I was in high school. And they tell you before you go in the room, like, okay, you know what? It's best for your friend if you don't have a freak out when you
Yeah.
see them.
Yeah.
So just letting you know, this
Yeah.
is going to be
Well,
surprising.
exactly. And so that's like JP, it took several weeks for him to go through all my injuries. And that was the first thing he told me about, because he didn't want me to see that and then freak out.
Yeah, absolutely.
So he was like, I'm going to tell you this. I'm going to show it to you. My head had been shaved, you know, because I had a surgery on each side.
Oh.
And so at first I was like, so mad. And then I also was like, I mean, to be honest, I tell people like I wanted to go back to sleep, and really I actually wanted to die. Like I was like, I wish I died. Can I just like, because I just didn't, I'm like, I've had a challenging life, and I've worked hard to get where I got, and I worked through a lot of things, a lot of challenges. I was like, I'm done. I'm over life being hard. This is too much. I don't want to overcome this too. I'm done. That's it. Like I totally just wanted to die. And then JP started showing me the comments that people made, and a video some people in Encinitas made.
I remember that one.
And all the comments. And then I was like, whoa, these people totally care about me. They like love me, and they they think I can do this, you know? And, you know, and like the video, they're like, Roberta's a warrior. I was like, they think I'm a warrior? And I was like, okay, they think I can. Then I was like, okay, these people love me and they care about me. They think I can do this. So I'm going to do this. I'm totally going to. And then my determination, you know, kicked in, and all my hard working. And then the doing more was really actually helpful because, you know, I had to learn to walk. I had to learn to talk, like all these things, you know, and it wasn't easy recovery, and it wasn't an easy journey, period, you know. And actually Mercedes said something to me, because Stacy came out the weekend I got out of the hospital, and we FaceTimed with Mercedes, and she said, this is the best advice I'd ever got. She said, celebrate every step you make, because what now seems tiny compared to the steps before are actually huge. And so I did.
Right.
Like I like the first time, like when I got out of the hospital, like I had a wheelchair and I had a cane. And so it was like, okay, let's make it to the end of the driveway. Okay, we celebrate that. And then when I made it to the end of the street, it was like, JP, I want a photo. He's like, really? I'm like, yes, celebrate, you know. But yeah, it was hard because I had, you know, I burst fractured my T7 and my T12, which they replaced my T12, and then they fused my spine from T4 to L2. So the majority of my spine has rods and screws. So flexibility, not so awesome.
Totally different physical reality.
Yeah, like I have a totally different physical reality. And it took me a while because for the first year or so, I was like, I just want my life back. I want my life back. I want my life. I cry, like, I want my life back. And it only took me until, I guess, a couple years, I started to realize, like, I'm still having a hard time with this physically. I'm still having a hard time with this emotionally. I'm still having a hard time with this cognitively. Like, all this hard work and trying to, like, overcome and compensate for, I'm still in the same place. Not the same place, but I'm not back to where I was.
Sure.
Or close to.
Sure.
And that was a huge shift for me. Like, because I thought I had accepted what had happened to me. Because I had gotten to a point where I was like, okay, I can't change what happened to me. Like, I got hit by a truck. Like, I can't change that. I have these injuries. I can't change that. So in my mind, I thought that was acceptance. Like, I was like, oh, that's acceptance of what happened to me.
Kind of it's a first step.
Yeah, and because of that, I was like, well, there's no reason to be sad about it. I can't change it.
Oh, that's not acceptance.
No, totally.
Right.
I can't change it. There's no reason to be sad about it. I'm just gonna do what I do.
Yeah.
Keep trucking forward. And then 4 years later, I was like, kind of started to realize, I started to get sad, and I was like, this doesn't make sense. And my energy started to, I was like, this doesn't make sense. I'm still, because I do lead luckily, I love structure, and I lead quite a structured life. Like,
sure.
I do things in limited time frames. Like, I'm not like, if I go snowboarding, it's not all day,
right?
You know, because I just don't have the physical energy anymore. You know, I've got about 40% of my previous energy levels. I was like, well, I'm still, like, resting. I'm still not doing too much. I'm, you know, all this stuff. Why, you know, and I really finally realized after several times, because I was like, oh, it's not my mental health. I've been to the Haven so many times. I've worked through so many things. I work with a neuropsychologist. Like, this must be physical, but really it was. Like, I had gotten to a point where I couldn't shove down that emotion of don't be sad, right? And that came up, and in that, my grief of, like, life as I knew it is actually over, you know? And I worked through a lot of that grief, and in that, I was like, oh, got to what my core, what I was grieving the most, and that was missing moments, my confidence, and community. And I can still have all those three things.
Absolutely.
Just differently, you
Right.
know?
Right.
Like I can create new moments, you know? I might not be going, you know, heliboarding or down to shipwrecks to surf this heavy wave, and I can still create moments in the water and in different ways. And so through going through that work, I was able to accept
yeah.
that, like, I do have physical limitations.
Right.
And with that, with that acceptance, I go in more with ease, because I'm not trying to overcome my heightened nervous system. Because that's the thing. I may not physically remember what happened to me, and my body 100% does.
Of course.
Like 100%. And so I was doing things, not intentionally, but it was keeping my nervous system redlined, you know?
That makes sense.
And I was like, oh, that's actually not helping me. And being stressed out about, well, if I do more speech therapy, I won't forget things, or I'll remember words more. I won't have as a hard time reading and understanding information. That stuff's helpful. And now I'll say to people, I'm like, you know what, I'm having a hard time remembering, or I can't think of the word. I want to say something, I can't think of the right words. I don't know if it'll get across, you know, and I just say it now.
Yes.
Instead of trying, you know, when someone says to me, oh, do you remember this? I used to say yes. I didn't.
Right. We all do it. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what the story I'm telling myself is we all do it.
Yeah, and now I just say, no, I don't remember.
That's so
Yeah.
much. Yeah. So I've come into the acceptance idea partially through Kearns. The Haven reinforced it. But like from a life of trying to understand what is the best way for me to deal with these things from my childhood that I can't accept.
Yeah.
Well, the best way is to accept them. And I was like, oh my God, that's so simple and so easy, right? Like, so when you're talking about like, life is not going to be like this for me forever.
Yeah.
Because I can work it out.
Yeah.
But then realizing there's only so far I can go.
Totally.
I accept that. But then also realizing that the resistance to that reality, when you let it go, that's sad, which is cool.
Totally.
Right on.
Yeah.
This is an appropriate time for me to feel sad.
Yeah.
That's from my experience. It's that I've always kind of been like a shortcut guy. And the easiest way to comfort is to expand the situations in which you're comfortable, not in accumulating a bunch of privilege to get above the discomfort of, not having enough money. It's to like accept exactly what's happening right now as inevitable. It happened.
Yeah.
Here we are.
Yeah.
My Haven experience culminated in a monologue to the group where I was like, I almost didn't come to Circle today.
Yeah.
Because I was so embarrassed about what happened. And then I realized, oh, everybody knows I'm a cynic. Like, what if I'm not a cynic? That doesn't define me.
Yeah, it's just a part of you. It's not all of you.
And I was going around the circle going, I've heard a lot of people describing themselves as alcoholics or as this. What if you're just alcoholing right now for a bit? What if you're a multi-dimensional person that has all kinds of potentials in every direction who's just cynicking right now?
Yeah.
And I think that's the trick. And I think that there's no greater test of that than getting mushed by a giant 18-wheeler truck.
It wasn't an 18-wheeler. It was a Dodge Ram.
Okay, well,
And I did dent the grill of the truck, my back.
Yeah, because you're a tough rock of a person. But yeah, there's nothing that's going to test you more than that. And I know that at the time, JP had been very vocal about what he was going through with his own career. And of course, he had to figure out some acceptance there too.
Yeah.
Like that would have been so difficult for the two of you. And I think many couples don't make it through.
Yeah.
Much less one crazy thing.
Yeah.
A second.
And it's hard. And we, like I said, so many people supported us. And when I was in a coma, like people were supporting JP.
Yeah.
And then too, like when I had my last surgery, to get my skull put on.
Yep.
I called Kearns and I said, can you please, I knew he had been there when I was in a coma. Of course, I don't remember him being there. My best friend, Sarah, she came down.
Yep.
I don't remember it either.
Right. Of course.
And I called him and I said, hey, I'm having my final surgery at the end of March. Could you please come back? And he said, of course. And I said, I want you to come back for me, and I mostly want you to come for JP. Because he's gone through 4 surgeries and a coma, and we don't know if she'll walk. We don't know if she'll talk.
Yeah.
You know, like that's all. I didn't have to go through that. I went through my own stuff for sure.
Right.
Like this was quite the shock to, you know, and to forget what happened, and many things that happened the week before to be gone, you know, and have this whole 6-week period of no memory.
So scary.
You know, and people really supported us. And then too, I mean, literally 2.5 months after my skull surgery, we went to the Haven. Like and I was super frail. I still had, at that time, I was wearing this vest. It was called a bone stimulator. And it was to stimulate the growth of bone in my back, so the bones would grow around the screws
rods and stuff,
and all that stuff. And so I had that. I was like,
is it like the Dr. Hose thing with like electrical?
I mean it. No, you couldn't really feel anything. It only went for like 2 hours. It would beep. I only had to wear it 2 hours a day, but it was like a full kind of like a life jacket.
Wow.
You know, thing that I wore. And we went there, and I actually didn't know what I was getting myself into at the time, or JP at the time. I had so many therapists. I had a speech therapist, an occupational therapist, physical therapist, neuropsychology, craniosacral therapy, and I couldn't drive. And JP was driving me to all those appointments every day, and I couldn't until I got my skull put on, there's really not much I could do by myself. I couldn't even get out of bed by myself. And so when Shauna talked to us about the Haven and going, my only thought was, I'm getting a lot of support. This is somewhere JP could get support. So I'm in.
Rad.
You know,
Rad.
I was like,
Rad.
Cool. You know, and we both got a lot of support there.
Yeah.
And then kept going back.
Yeah, you're like one of the, what do they call them?
Well, I'm an intern. I'm in the intern training program.
Still intern,
so I still take programs there. Like I took their grief program when I realized I'm grieving.
It's a great idea.
I'm going to take their grief program, and I got so much out of it. It was really transformational for me. And then as an intern, I intern at the Come Alive programs, and then I also intern at the 25-day Living Alive programs.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's wonderful for me because I don't have the capacity to work anymore, like my energy, cognitively, and this is an opportunity for me to give back and support people as they go through their journey, and it supports my journey too.
Right.
You know.
Right.
Yeah. I love it.
The one thing that I got out of the Haven that can never go away is that faith in humanity, like the fact that total strangers are going through an experience. Like we all have this very singular experience. We don't talk about it very much because we're in communities, in groups.
Yeah.
That's what feels great, is that we're very, communal creatures. But there's no way for you to share your experience with me directly. And there's no way for me to share it with you directly.
Yeah, well, we're all unique.
Yeah,
we're all unique,
100%.
And how we experience things are going to be different, and it's based on our context, right? Like what's our historical context, today's context. It's all different, and we don't know. We see someone and we think we know them, and we know what's going on. And, Roberta's from North Vancouver. She's privileged.
Sure.
Exactly.
That's
an easy thing for someone to think.
Well, that's the exercise that was one of the greatest, is sitting down at first with everybody just describing themselves. I wish we would have filmed that and got to see it at the end because of how, like, the story you're telling people. You're telling yourself that story. Really, that's what you get to witness is the story that people are telling themselves.
Yeah.
Which is incredible that's what we have to do all the time, right? So like,
and what do you mean the story they're telling themselves, like about someone else?
About themselves, about someone else. It's that 90-10. So 10% of information you absorb, 90% you're making up. So when I look at the guy outside, that's the story I'm telling myself.
That's your story,
exactly.
because you don't know if when someone's introducing themselves, you don't know if they're making that up or not.
No idea.
You have no idea.
You have to take it at whatever you've decided you take that story at.
Or you're open to the possibility of a curiosity of, who are they? And what more is there? And I heard them say this. And what is that about?
Mm-hmm.
And what is that, like it's really, and actually I'll give you this situation that happened the other day. I swim at Harry Jerome Rec Center.
Yep.
I've been swimming there for years when I'm here in the winter.
Yep.
And I love it. And I go right when it's open. So I'm there at like 5:45 a.m. and I'm in the slow lane because, well, for one thing, I'm not very fast at swimming now. Not that I was before. And motion is hard for me, like quick motion and any loud sounds behind me. So I'm in the slow lane, which is great. And so I'm always in the slow lane. And I'm there early. I'm the first one there. I usually have it to myself for like 20 minutes.
Sweet.
And then this gentleman joined, and he was quite slow, and I'm slow too. And still, I like to get to the very end. And he and he sometimes doesn't stop at the end. And so I caught up to him. I swim behind him. I was like, at this rate, like I'll be here forever. So I just passed him, not fast. And I'm kind of little, so it's not like my passing is going to have like a real big impact.
Right.
That's my story. Who knows?
Totally.
And he said something to me, and to me it sounded aggressive. Like he was like, "Don't pass me." And I said, "Oh well, I'm actually allowed to pass. Like that's actually allowed in the lanes. That's why you swim in a circle." And then he said something about, well, it's aggressive, or it's shocking, something about not liking it, right? And then I was like, and just his tone, I told myself a story, this guy's angry, and he was an older gentleman, a little bigger, and I was like, wow, this is shocking, and that guy's mean. That was my story. And I asked the lifeguard about him. I was like, is that guy regularly here? Like, he's like, oh yeah, sometimes he's working out. I'm like, oh, and I told him what he said. He's like, oh, well, if that's not right. Like, you are allowed to pass. Tell me if he says something. I'm like, okay, so he is regular, so I ought to get used to this guy and just be prepared. This guy's going to be here. And yesterday, I was swimming, and he was there, and he was quite nice. Like, he'd get to the end of the lane, and he'd say, go ahead and let me go. And then, I did see the last time I was swimming there, he was talking with the lifeguard. At first, of course, I told myself a story like, he hates me.
Yeah,
He's totally upset. He's telling the lifeguard to get me in a different lane. Like,
totally.
I was totally like, oh man, oh well, whatever, I'm just swimming. And so then he's totally nice to me yesterday. And let me go ahead. And then at one point I was doing a kickboard, and I'm really slow at kicking, especially since I have hemiparesis in my right leg from the brain injury.
Yeah, I don't know what that is.
It basically means some of the signals from my brain aren't firing, right?
Got
So
it.
in that leg specifically. So it's weaker. It's not one of those things like, oh, my right side's stronger than the other. It's totally different. Right. So I definitely, kicking is I'm slow. So I said to him, ooh, I'm going to be kicking. I'm really slow. Do you want to go? He's like, no, go ahead. Super, super nice. And then I was like, wow, okay. And then I was in the sauna after stretching, and he came in and he said, anyways, we have a conversation. He's totally nice. And I come to find out his wife recently passed.
Oh.
That's the thing. We don't know what's going on for people.
No idea.
We don't know what their context is. And, a week or two ago when I saw him, he could have been in a really low place because his wife of 30 years that he loved so much had just passed.
Right.
And a lot of times, I don't know why I didn't with that guy. And I usually typically, if someone's elevated, I tell myself a story. There's something going on for them. I don't know what it is. And for whatever reason, in that instance, I didn't, because everyone at the rec center is so friendly. I was just so thrown off. Like, wait a minute, someone's
right. And you're taking steps. You're like, is this guy in the right here? And they're agreeing with you. You're building the story up that like in this conflict. Yeah. I'm not wrong here at all.
Yeah.
This guy's, but you lose the curiosity.
I lost the curiosity.
The curiosity is the key, and I think
it really is.
I think people need to hear that now because I think the algorithm, which is like saying the government or whatever, but I think the circumstances of our community now with so much phone time is that we've been taking curiosity out of the lexicon and saying, if you like Trump, you are this.
Yeah.
If you are a snowboarder, you're a dirtbag. If you look this way, then you are that way.
Yeah.
And so without the curiosity,
I took that one thing that he said and I took it to this guy's aggressive.
Right.
Without checking it out or having curiosity.
Right.
Right. And then I luckily got a chance to, when he came in, and at that moment I was like, okay, I'm going to be open to the possibility and be curious. And we had a lovely conversation.
That's
and
it.
he was quite nice, caring individual.
Yes.
And he's lost his wife.
Right.
It's so interesting. And I think that part of the reason I didn't get curious with this guy, and you're probably going to want to edit this out, and I'm going to share this. I'm not sure if I have. So last winter, I remember when we had that like cold snap and it was like minus 20. It was like freezing. And I had a friend who'd never snowshoed before. And I was like, and it was sunny. I was like, all right, this is perfect. I'm going to take you to Dog Mountain. It's an easy snowshoe. I love, like, when it's not good snowboarding, I hike here all the time. So we came up here, and I think I had something going on in the morning that I thought wasn't going to be that long, and it took forever. It was during the week, and we came up to Seymour, and it's like 1:30 or whatever time it is, and I typically, like, we have a 2003 Tundra. It's raised, and when you have four-wheel drive on, the turning ratio, not that awesome.
Sure.
So, I usually like to get up here early and get, like, with the roads, like an end of the row, right? Like, I don't want to be in the middle because, like, sometimes people, like, the between the roads gets a little tight.
Totally.
And to get out, it's pretty hard.
Yes.
Right? And so I lucked out because, of course, it's like 1:30 on a sunny day. And I got an end of the row, like right near the banks where people are parked there. So I'm like, perfect, like so stoked. This is awesome.
Perfect spot.
Yeah, park there. We're good. We go snowshoe. We snowshoe back. We're like on the snow beside the parking lot. Truck's right there. We're in line with the restrooms, the washrooms. And, I'm taking out, like, I'm totally bundled up. Like, it was like it's freezing, and like my water bottles all froze.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
While you were walking?
While we were walking.
Like, even with the water sloshing around, it's freezing and it froze.
Damn. It was so cold.
Yeah.
So and so I'm like, just put your snowshoes in the back seat, all good. And I'm taking off my bag. And I say to her, hey, I'm just going to go to the washroom and then we'll head down. It's like 4:30 or whatever at this point. And she's okay. So she's in. I shut the door. And I had kind of seen our back windows are tinted. And I had seen a car kind of pull up behind, I'm thinking they're leaving or something, or maybe they'll want my spot, whatever. And I start going to the washroom. And it's a big truck, like a Ford something, silver, big, taller dude. And he's like, aren't you leaving? He's like, are you going to go? I said, oh, yeah, I am. I'm just going to the washroom first. Then he starts yelling at me. and telling me that I'm parked illegally. Okay, I've been riding Seymour since 1991.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not, and there was a cone there. Like, I'm like, no, actually, I'm not parked illegally.
Weird move.
Yeah, and then he starts getting quite angry. He's like, you know that it's like a one-way? I'm like, no, I do know it's a one-way. Like, I know how this parking lot works. And I'm still, like, motioning to go to the washroom, right? And he's like, so are you not going to go? I'm like, dude, I'm totally going. I'm just going to the washroom, you know? And he's like, well, you know what I'm going to do? And he starts yelling. He's like, I'm going to stand in front of your truck for an hour and a half and make it so you can't leave. And then I was like, okay, wait, now or no, actually he said this after I said this. He was yelling at me all this stuff, and I'm just like, I just want to go. I'm still on the frame of mind of I'm going to the washroom. Like, I need to go pee.
This is what I'm thinking right now.
This is all I can think about. And this guy's yelling. He's starting to yell at me, illegal, da-da-da-da-da. And I said, okay. I didn't do it quite correctly. And I said, okay, I hear you. I hear what you're saying. And it sounds like you're angry. And then he flipped. That's when he started saying that, like, I'm going to stand in front of your truck for an hour. I'm not going to let you leave. And then I was like, oh, okay, now I actually don't feel safe.
Right.
And, like, I don't want to leave my car because will he damage it? Like, I don't know what's going to go on now.
Yeah.
Like, this he's a bigger dude. He's in his big truck. I'm like, this guy's aggressive. So I go back. I open the door. And my friend who's sitting there was like, I could hear that guy yelling everything. Like, what's going on? I'm like, yeah, I'm going to call Chris or Simon at Seymour. Of course, my phone is almost dead. It's so cold.
Oh, right.
I can't, I'm like, I'm trying to call. And I didn't want to get in the car because if I got in the car and just sat in it, that would irritate him. Like, I'm just sitting here bothering you.
Right.
So I'm like, so I'm standing outside and I tell my friend, I'm like, you know where I picked up my season's pass? Go there. We need help. Like, you need to go get someone.
Yeah.
So she goes and does that. And I'm just sitting there trying to get my phone to work. And then out of the corner of my eye, I see him approaching me. And so I just turned to, like, be ready. Like, I'm ready. And he had, like, a big gulp-sized glass or cup full of water, and he throws it on me.
Oh, come on. That's horrible.
It's minus 15. He throws this on. I'm totally shocked now. Like, I'm like, and I hear this woman.
Violent.
I hear this woman like, that's not acceptable. And I'm just trying to figure out what just went on. This guy just threw water on me. Like, it's freezing cold. It's instantly freezing on my jacket. I did run out to try to, like, get a photo of his license plate, which I couldn't. My hands were frozen. I was like, and ski patrol came, and I did end up actually, like, reporting it to the police. Yeah. Because I'm like, look, and even the ski patrol was like, well, it sounded like you tried to diffuse the situation. I was like, I did. I wasn't, and I knew this. I'm like, whatever was going on for that guy did not have to do with me at all.
Nothing.
Like, that something's going on. And what I told the police officer, because he's like, well, what do you want? Do you want an apology? I was like, no. I'm like, that guy assaulted me. That's assault, for one thing. Yeah. And secondly, like, I didn't react. I didn't yell and get, and I was like, whatever's going on with that guy, this isn't the first time. And he could do that, and the situation wouldn't turn out as good as this, Like,
if it's somebody violent that he's doing that to, and you didn't say anything, and then now it's right. Like,
so I was like, I want this, like, find this guy, So I think that's kind of part of the reason why when I was swimming and that guy seemed aggressive to me, I didn't say anything. I didn't get curious because I was like, I could get hurt
again.
Here. Like, I was like, I'm gonna just, So. But in the end, like, everything was fine. Like, the next time I came snowboarding, because then we got all that snow, and I called little Dave, and I was like, come, because I was like, I don't want to go snowboarding by myself. Just because, mostly for the parking lot. Like, I was like, what if that guy's up there?
That's incredible, right.
Right? And so little Dave, I was like, dude, like, he's like, yeah, I'll meet you up there. I was like, okay, like, can you, like, you're going to drive up? He's like, yeah. I'm like, okay, will you come and meet me at my car? And
That's so sweet. That's so sweet.
And he did.
Of course
and then afterwards, he walked me to my car until I left.
Yeah, of course.
Which, I mean, I've snowboarded at Seymour my entire life.
Totally.
I've never had any negative experience ever.
Ever.
You know, that was just some really.
I've never even heard an argument in the parking lot over a
No, neither have I.
Ever. Not ever.
Ever. And the parking lot, like, it gets pretty, like, chaotic. You know, like, people don't.
You can drive around for a long time and start to get frustrated that it's like, I'm going to have to park way over here. I've definitely walked to the lift like, oh, geez, I have to park
for
way
sure.
here.
And
but
people don't
I wouldn't
get it.
even beep at someone if they snuck in the spot in front of me. I'd be like, good for you.
Yeah.
All
and
right,
it was
now
funny,
you have that
like
spot.
the ski patrol, he was so nice. He was like, I'm so sorry this happened. I hope that you'll come back to Seymour. I was
right.
I was like, dude, I'm coming back. You don't have to worry about
I'm a
that.
lifer.
Like I'm a lifer. I love this place.
That makes a lot of sense, though. And I think the secret of the Haven, that when you're curious about people, your life is better.
Totally.
You actually, it's like, oh my God, all these people around this circle that I had all these ideas about that I was just making up, that are based on things I didn't program in myself on purpose, right? Like, I didn't choose my beliefs. I got programmed with our culture, ideas.
Society, like school, parents.
And when you're curious, this wonderful landscape opens up of all these amazing experiences that other people have had. And your experiences take on a new level of enjoyment. For me, that's what's happened for me.
So I'd like to encourage you to say my experiences instead of your, because I think you're talking about yourself.
You got me. You got me. My experiences, that's it.
I think when I hear people say we or you, I think that they're, one, not acknowledging themselves, and two, identifying who I am. And it's not,
right. You know, I'm in my own world 100% of the time.
Yeah, totally.
But I'm starting to open to the idea that being with people is an honor, a big honor, right? A lot of thanking lately of like, thank you for sharing that with people that I'm like, I recognize that would be a lot for you.
Totally.
Like, thank you for sharing your story today. This is like so much fun. I mean, some parts are pretty easy because we're celebrating Roberta, but you have an authenticity and you always have that is inspiring and really cool. And I think you deserved all the accolades and all the wins and all the things that you accumulated over the years.
Thank
You're a tough person. God. Yeah. And an inspiration, which is super
Thank
sick.
you. I appreciate you saying that and acknowledging me in my career. It helps me to acknowledge myself too.
Yeah. Do it.
Yeah.
Because like when you're reading those words that Stacy wrote in the intro, you're that person to a lot of people. Yeah. Like there was a lot of exposure of snowboarding in the 90s, 2000s, and you're a huge part of that.
Yeah.
And you inspired a lot of people to get into it, which is like epic.
That's
cool. Awesome. So fun. It must feel really rewarding when you see where snowboarding is and you acknowledge the place that you had in it.
Yeah, like I think I had one part in it, and lots of women, like the chorus girls, and people like Hannah Beeman, like all these, and Jess Camira, like they all really, Spencer, they all helped move things forward, and now this new generation are really making huge changes.
Oh, they're really killing it.
Yeah,
I'm really happy
cool
about
to see.
it.
Like a lot of people really helped me.
Yes.
All my guy friends, and who actually, I'm thankful to Todd Richards. Because of him, I got to go heli boarding for my first time.
Rad.
Because I didn't know until your podcast that you did with Mouse when he talked about Todd not showing up in Whistler during the Westbeach Classic, and I was staying with Jade and Mark, and that morning, and I never knew who it was, and he said, "Hey, Roberta, we've got a seat on the heli. Do you want to come?"
Sick.
So that's one of those things, people and places. I was staying in Whistler with Jade and Mark. He was going heliing. Todd didn't show up. I got to go.
That's amazing.
So I guess that's the big thing about Roberta is, one, and this is me acknowledging myself. Like, I was like, people are so nice, right? Well, I'm nice. And so people did nice things for me.
Aw.
They're nice too, and I'm nice. So Mark, we'll bring Roberta.
Yeah.
You know, and I got to go heli boarding.
Amazing.
You know, so that's like an acknowledgement of Roberta. I'm a nice person, and people do nice things to me. I have nice friends because I'm a nice friend. My friends care because I care a lot.
That's sweet. Yeah. Thank you so much for being my guest today.
Thanks for
being
having
my
me.
friend for years and years. This is so sick.
Yeah.
And yeah, say hey to Todd when you see him around town at the Panickin, right?
Yeah, of
That's where
course.
he's always at. That's what I hear. Yeah, awesome. I'll be down in Encinitas again at some point.
Okay, well, let me know when you're down there.
FNRad shoutouts to Roberta Walker. Thank you for taking the time to share your story with our listeners. Thank you to Chris, Simon, Eddie, and all the Rock Shoot staff up Mount Seymour, where we filmed this interview. Thank you to the Patreon supporters. Love you guys the most. And a special shout out to Paul Yancey this week. Hang in there, brother. I hope it gets better soon. Be sure to come back next week for more FNRad snowboarding presented by Flojoy Water and brought to you by FNRad Productions.